Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports. When
it comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
It's been special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
And this is a real program. It's not fake. This is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football, this is a really good place to be.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
All right. Basketball on their way to Denver, hopefully a little bit later today. A little gas leak situation by the airport kind of caused them a delay. Knowing Buzz the way I do, I'm sure he had a backup plan ready to go, but probably very he likes things exactly at a certain time.
Yes.
So I'm sure that was he was not happy about that.
No. I don't think anybody in College Station would be. Yeah, you know, you want to get there and get settled and all those things. But it seems like when they're involved in traveling, a lot of times it's not through no fault of their own, whether it's bad weather going to Arkansas or bad plane ride and forcing you to stop in Omaha to recruit someone. It seems like they have an awful lot of issues, like I said, no fault of their own, but travel and just some bad luck with travel.
Hopefully they get there a little bit later on today. We will be getting there later on today, starting our coverage tomorrow morning as we get closer to the Yale game. I'm going to have the Yale head coach on the show a little bit later on today.
James Jones?
James Jones. What a nice man.
Been there a long time.
1999.
Yeah. I have a friend of mine who I used to work with in Austin. So that's how long ago it was. I was texting him because he went to Yale.
Yeah.
Said, hey, you know, what can you tell me about Yale? He said, other than the fact that they're going to kick your ass. You know, again, he went to Yale. He said, when I was a student there, I was interviewing that coach. So
wow.
That's how long he's
been a minute.
There. Yeah.
Now, he's been there since 99. He had a couple good years, then he had some lean years, and then the last, I guess, 10 years have been really good. So that interview will come up at 9:35. But they have a brand of basketball. He'll talk about it in the interview, but the kind of guys that he recruits, you know, they tend to be good three-point shooters. They tend to be the kind of guys that don't turn the ball over. In that league, you're going to get those kind of players.
Yeah. It's actually a good basketball league. You've seen them have, you know, going back to, I guess it was it Pete Carroll was he at Princeton?
Yes.
And they were, you know, for years, they were just thorn in everybody's side.
Yes,
they didn't typically win, but they won in the tournament. They won enough.
Yeah.
And when they lost, quite often it was a high seed that, you know, just barely eked out a win. Mm. So if you just see Ivy League and think, okay, and you associate it with how your football team would do against an Ivy League football team, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Because they typically play good basketball. They play within themselves.
Within themselves. That's a great way to phrase it. And it's interesting, the amount of people I'm hearing from predicting an upset. It's like, I don't want to say overwhelming, but Aggies that I know that are diehards, like, man, I don't think we're going to win this. I'm worried about this one. And you should be worried because it's the tournament and these kind of things happen. But I'm not as worried as I typically am, OB.
Well, worried, I don't think is the right word. I think you should respect your opponent.
Respect.
Absolutely respect your opponent, and especially in this case. Now, I was listening to Sirius Radio, some national show yesterday, and one of the hosts was picking Yale to win.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think people just want to pick upsets.
Well, yes, they do. They look for what is the upset. And
who's the 13? Let's go.
And you look at what Yale did last year, and, you know, A&M lost its last game, and, you know, other than the win over Auburn, they had not played great ball for last 3 or 4 games. So, yeah, they look at that and say, this would look like a team that was ripe for an upset. But I don't know. I feel pretty good about it. I'm still going to typically go with the team that I think is more athletic and more physical.
So Saturday
and more battle tested, by the way.
Saturday Down South has a couple of notes about Yale, trying to give. They have this little section where they go through everybody's opponent in the SEC. And I have a follow-up question for you about how does the SEC do in this tournament. But Yale checks in 59th in the country in adjusted offensive efficiency. For comparison, A&M is 44th in the same stat. Yale shoots 38.8% from three-point line, which is 8th nationally. They have 16 assists a game, 31st nationally, and 5 players averaging over an assist a game or better. And they only take 19.7 three-pointers per game, which is 310th, while averaging almost 82 points a game.
Yeah.
Very efficient.
They are. Now, you got to take into account their competition, their level of competition, too.
Right.
Look, they're not an overly big team. I think they got a 6'10" guy, but everybody else is 6'7" or shorter. So that's sometimes an issue with A&M, a height discrepancy or disparity, and in that case it won't. In that case it won't be. Look, I feel really good about A&M if, here's my big if, are you going to leave their 3-point shooters open like you did against Penn State? All right?
Please don't remind me.
I mean, if you go out and guard them, I figure the kid with the Greek name was such a good 3-point shooter, and I know what you're saying is they don't rely completely on the 3-point shot.
Yep.
I get that. But I doubt if he's been checked by somebody like Solomon Washington all year.
You're right. Well, a couple other notes. So they have a big man who is 6'10", Samson Aletan.
I think he's a Dallas kid.
I gave him a Latin last name. I don't know if it's Aletan or Alaton. Maybe he's a good old East Texas boy. But
not if his name's Samson. If it was Sammy, then maybe.
He only commits 2 fouls a game in 20 minutes a game.
Okay.
So he doesn't. So big guy, though. It'll be interesting to see how Pharrell Payne does against him.
I'm going to like Pharrell Payne in that matchup.
I am too.
Yeah.
I am too. The other thing that I was kind of like, so we talk about how Yale has done against top teams, right? Auburn last year, 2016, Baylor. They got some other interesting storylines.
Yes, hold on for just a second.
Yeah, let's take
you
time.
Said, and again, I respect the opponent they're coming up with, but here's that A&M's facing. But in the tournament, they're known for, really they beat Baylor and they beat Auburn. And that was like 8 years apart. So those that are going to be quick to say, oh yeah, look, what they've done in the tournament, yeah, they've had some big wins in the tournament 8 years apart.
They lost that year that they beat Baylor. They lost to Duke in the next round.
Yeah, and it was close, I think.
Close game. Grayson Allen, Brandon Ingram, Luke Kennard on that team. It was a 71-64 loss. Yeah. In 2019, they matched up with LSU, the 3 seed, and won 79-74.
Wait, they beat LSU?
No, they lost 79-74, but they were close.
Very competitive.
So they play teams tight.
Yes.
So if A&M wins a 7-8 point game, don't be mad.
Yeah.
This is how they play teams.
You know what you do? You survive in advance.
It's all what it's about.
Yeah.
It is.
Doesn't matter how many points. Just get through the game and get to the next one.
Yeah, 100%. So how's the SEC going to do?
Oh, I think they're going to do very well.
Yep.
I would think. I would not be surprised if you had half the Sweet 16 would be. I don't even know if that's mathematically possible because of the matchups. But if it is, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw half of the Sweet 16 in SEC teams.
Here's a note for you: 6 SEC teams have top 4 seeds, which is pretty remarkable. 3 years ago, the SEC only had 6 teams in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, again, it's loaded.
Yeah,
it's loaded. When you look at the worst team in the league was South Carolina. Yeah, because LSU beat them, or at least one of the worst teams. And they beat Clemson, which was, what's Clemson, a 5 seed?
Uh-huh.
That's why I say A&M's the more battle-tested team.
Yeah.
You've played really good competition night in and night out. And quite frankly, Yale has it. That doesn't mean in a one-game setting, if A&M and Yale play 10 times, A&M's going to win 8 or 9. You don't want this one to be the one.
Well, when Matthew Dawson comes on the show a little bit later, we have this.
I can't believe he didn't go to Yale. He talks like he went to Yale.
He does talk like, yeah.
Oh, I went to Yale.
How does he like those apples? Anyway.
That was Harvard.
Yeah, I know, but it's the same kind of kid, right? Aren't they the same kind of kid?
Yeah, kind of.
So when
I could see Dawson in a
cardigan?
raccoon skin jacket and a pennant going boola boola, boola boola. You know, that's where Oklahoma stole their fight song from Yale.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So when he comes on the show, we have this thing that we're releasing today. I don't know if you know about it.
No.
Well, you're laughing. You think of something? You're thinking about the boola boola?
I was thinking of Matthew Dawson. Yale.
Could you see him with a little skinny mustache?
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway,
I think I have.
What, are we making him French now? Anyway, so when we get Dawson on the show, there's this thing that TexAgs is working on. I don't want to give out too much information, but let's just say there's a model out there that has A&M playing Yale. I think it's 10,000 times. So we're going to let you know what the model says in those 10,000 times. So we'll talk to Matthew Dawson about that at around 9:20 or so. The other thing I wanted to bring up is, buddy, I've said this on the air before. I'm not saying it was an original idea, but Deion Sanders has got an idea that I've floated on TexAgs Live. But don't make the face. I love it. I'm all in. Spring joint practices, spring game. Let's go.
I like that.
Yeah.
Idea. I asked Mike Elko what he thought on it one day. He hates that.
I love the idea.
Hates it. But yeah,
until a player gets hurt.
Have your spring game against another team.
Yeah.
It's just like a preseason game in the NFL, but at least you get a better idea of how to feel. When I watch a inter-squad game, and let's say my guy gets a sack, I don't know how to feel about that.
Right.
Because maybe it means my blocking sucks. Or if my guy gets a touchdown pass, do I celebrate it or say, gosh, we can't cover anybody?
Right.
But if I was playing somebody else, I might get a better idea.
So Fran Brown at Syracuse, he accepts the offer. It looks like they're going to be going. It's a proposed joint practice. I don't know if they've agreed to it both, but he says, hey, I want in. I'd like to see it. I think it's a cool idea.
I'm all for that, 100%. Now, are they going to play a game or are they just going to practice against
My understanding that Deion wants joint practices and a spring game.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's a great idea. I think you play harder.
If it's not your teammate
else.
On the other side.
Plus, you don't. If you're playing against your team, you kind of know, like if you're defense, you kind of have an idea what the offensive plays are.
Yeah, and I think a coach is he's not gonna have trick plays, but he's gonna try to win. And like when you're taking on your own team, your offense coordinator is trying to score, your defense. But at the same time, as the head coach, you're like, well, if one team scores and the other doesn't, what does that say about the other?
And, how many times in spring games and it would still be this way to a certain degree, but how many times in spring games do you see walk-ons that are never going to play in the season play and actually sometimes there's a star of the spring game, but you have to play them.
Yeah.
Why? Because, you got to fill out the teams.
Well, the interesting thing is that Syracuse and Colorado, I would say, are of the same ilk, if you will.
Yeah. They're just separated by about 3,000 miles.
But I'm saying kind of athletes that go there, right? And if A&M were to do it against Sam or something, no, Sam has moved up in the world for sure. Could you imagine, though, a scenario where a top school, does lose to one of these small ones in a spring game? I know it doesn't matter, but I know there's a little bit of protection there as well.
You know why I could imagine that? I could see it happening. Well, first of all, I've seen Ole Miss lose a regular season game to Jacksonville State a few years ago. I saw years and years ago, I saw the Citadel beat Arkansas in a regular game. Their coach got fired the next Monday. That said, because look, a lot of times in the spring, there are certain players what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And so you don't play them. Or if you do, it's just, a cameo appearance because you don't want to get them hurt. Whereas if I was the coach from the lesser team, hey, what a confidence building for
Right.
my team if I can come over and beat A&M. Who cares if it's a bunch of backups and walk-ons?
It's still, hey, we went to Kyle Field and we did X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
All right. By the way, did you know that this particular show has a name called TexAgs Live?
It's TexAgs Live.
Yeah. Presented by?
David Gardner Jewelers.
Thank you. Yeah. I forgot the name of the studio, though.
The Raw Insurance Studio?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right. This hour has a name, too. We actually name ours.
The Go Hour. Go to work. Go home and turn on this show. Go turn on this show.
Go turn on this show. Presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. And this particular area, we actually...
This area? Now that we have the platform.
The platform. What do we call it?
Cool Zone.
The Holistic Planning Cool Zone.
Cool Zone.
And they do a lot of great stuff with holistic planning, don't
Oh, my goodness. A lot of cool stuff. Like investments. Investments are cool when you're making money. Taxes are never cool, but it's pretty cool if you get as much of your money back.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea.
Yeah. And estate planning, it's really cool to be planning for your estate. So when you get old like me and you retire, you have some money to enjoy life with. And one of the ways they're going to help you build that estate is by investing in what?
I think it's investinprosports.com.
Among other things.
Yeah, you can invest in a lot of things, but they will help you out with that. You know what I really enjoyed about yesterday?
Tell me.
The gun show.
The gun show?
Did you see the tweet after somebody's like, Olin's been hitting the gym. The guns are popping out. And today, another gun show. Look at that. Not even trying.
I don't even think of myself as being,
the bulging bicep.
I'm not like, people see David and they say, hey, somebody call the zoo because the pythons are loose.
Does the zoo have pythons?
Somebody get him some tape because he's ripped.
Well,
that's not the case for me.
I'm not going to argue with you. Anyway, let's give out the phone number, 979-693-1150. If you want to call the show, we'll pick it up on the Puppy's Catering hotline, 979-693-1150. We go around the room. We say hi to the people. Let's talk to Mr. Rodeo, Nick Savage. Good morning, buddy.
Howdy, good morning, y'all.
Well, that was kind of a sad good morning.
I didn't mean to sound sad, sorry.
No, it was like good morning.
Good
Hey, Nick, what's up, man?
Well, y'all mentioned, or David, when you mentioned James Jones taking the job at Yale in 1999, I was curious. I went back and looked. James Jones took the job 5 days after I was born. So he's been there for a minute, as you say in your interview.
First off, that's a shot. Nick, direct shot at both of us for being old. Okay. Secondly, Callie Gardner did the exact same thing yesterday. So when I came, we did the interview, we're going to run it today. I walked back, they're kind of happy with the interview. And I was like, yeah, he took the job when I graduated college. And her response was like, oh my God, like it was so long ago.
Kids just have no respect anymore.
Zero.
Well, unlike Callie Garner, I'm not disgusted by y'all. So, I mean, I have that going for me.
I'm disgusted by us.
Wait.
I know I'm disgusted by me.
Yeah, I am too, but not at myself. So Callie Gardner's disgusted by us?
Well, the way you just portrayed her in that reenactment.
Insider information, OB.
Sorry, Callie.
We know stuff on Callie.
Yeah, we do. Huh. She was my number one draft pick, and here we go.
Public.
Anyway, Reed Neal is at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Right now, he could be a second-day pick. He's trying to become a first-round pick. Hello, Reed.
How's it going, guys?
How are you?
Not bad.
It's been a minute.
It has. Spring break.
Are you going to talk softly like Nick, like sad, or are you going to be happy?
No, I'm happy.
Well, what'd you do on spring break?
I went to South Padre for the first weekend, and then I was home for a couple days, and then me and my dad went to Kansas to work on a deer lease, which is a lot more fun than it sounds.
Back before you were born, when I went to South Padre for spring break, it was there was a lot of alcohol on the beach. Was that the same case?
Were you doing keg stand?
Well, David, let's be careful. Here I am, under 21.
I forgot about that. You're a child.
Yeah,
Disregard.
I am. But there was nothing going on the beach, honestly.
Good.
But we had a good time.
Good. Hopefully you guys had fun. What do you have for us?
So we've got an optimistic comment on YouTube. Jesse says, Yale is so trendy for the quote-unquote experts on ESPN and the casuals who are looking for the right upset. Ags for the win.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's true. They are looking for the upsets, and for the reasons we discussed earlier. Yeah, that's probably a trendy pick or a popular pick.
I think people just like to pick upsets. Like, I'm going to go with this team.
There's always a handful of upsets. So, you want to, when you're filling out your brackets, you're looking for, they're going to be there.
Yep.
So who is most likely to be upset? And some of them think A&M is.
If A&M plays their game, I think they win this game comfortably. That's my opinion today.
Okay.
I could change tomorrow, but today, I think there's a big if there, if they play their game. If everybody on their team is a three-point shooter, just cover the three-point shooters. Done. Game over.
Okay.
Don't give open shots.
But will they do that?
I don't know. And interestingly, you'll hear, I feel like I'm giving the interview away. It's like when you watch a trailer for a movie, you're like, I just feel like I watched the movie. I'm giving the interview away with James Jones. But he even said sometimes he was watching them. He goes, I don't really know if they're going to be, if they're in zone, if they're man-to-man. They kind of switch up on you. And that's a good thing when a team doesn't know what kind of defense to prepare for.
I think, and we're going to get back to you, Reed.
Maybe.
I think that A&M is probably a more tougher team to prepare for than most. So actually, you want to play them in the first game of the series because you have extra time to prepare. Like I think Michigan or San Diego, they're going to look at some of the unorthodox things that A&M does and go, okay, we got one day to figure this out.
Right. Now, if A&M were to lose, it's going to be because of the three-point shots, right?
Well, that's typically the case.
Sure. So cover the three-point shots.
Or frequently.
I know I've simplified it. There's a lot more to it, but
it might be because they missed 20 free throws.
Right. Read one more.
Read.
Excuse me?
Read.
Yep. So we've got Player of the Week coming up. I just wanted to go ahead and throw out Jaya Covington won the 60-meter hurdles on Saturday. Excuse me?
At the indoors?
Yes, on the indoors. She broke her record 2 times. On Friday, she crossed the line at 7.94, and then again on Saturday, she broke it with a 7.9. Both of those are her first time breaking 8 seconds, and it is her first time for the Aggies ever winning a title in the 60-meter hurdles.
Reed, thank you very much, buddy. Appreciate you. OB, this is I'm not making this up because we're about to talk 1775. I'm being very honest with you. If the airlines today said, you know what, guys, you can bring food from outside the airport. We don't care. We want you to. In fact, we encourage it. Okay? Mm-hmm. And they said, you can bring whatever. You can bring, I would bring, well, are we allowed to do that? Are you allowed to bring food? You're not, right?
No.
You have to bring food from inside, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if they allowed us, because if not, this spot
maybe 1775 should open a restaurant in the airport.
Yes.
Well, as College Station continues to grow, and we're getting huge, then Easternwood will eventually expand, and then you'll have the big airport, and they'll have the restaurants in there in 1775, right there. But then you'll only want to fly on Tuesdays. On Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Yeah, but you know what, though? You wouldn't have to pay for first class because you would be first class, buddy.
You would be first class because you had some first class barbecue from 1775.
And currently, I'm in the mood for the pork ribs. That's what I'm in the mood for right now.
Pork ribs, I love them. I get those pork ribs, and I kind of look at them and I say, pork ribs, you've never let me down.
Ever.
You've never let me down. Women have let me down.
Yeah, Nick Savage just let us both down.
Nick Savage always let on a daily basis, but the pork ribs from 1775 have never let me down. You know what's never let me down in?
David Nuño.
I was going to say the queso mac and cheese.
Oh, the queso mac and cheese.
That'll never let you down.
It
brisket doesn't let you down.
Open Thursday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until they're sold out. Online ordering turns off at 10 a.m. The website, 1775txbbq.com, or call them up, 979-492-6241. It's 1775.
They'll never let you down.
And we're back, TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Apologies to Tom. He was on hold on the Buppy's Catering Hotline, but we just rambled away in that first segment. So if you want to call back, Tom, we'll take that call. 979-693-1150. I wanted to do Performance of the Week, but beforehand, a couple of text messages I want to get to and some YouTube chats. So we go back to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Can you please read Blake's?
Yes, so he says, at David Nuño, I hope everyone's saying these matchup advantages for Yale end up being like all the A&M football games where they say there's an advantage and it ends up not being the case at all.
The one that I think about, I mean, there were several last year, but like to start off the season, Notre Dame, brand new offensive line, right? And they were fantastic. And in fact, I remember when we were talking about the O-line, people, Notre Dame fans who were listening to the show were telling me, and they were very polite. They were saying, you're sleeping on a couple of these freshmen. They're legit. And they ended up being legit.
Yeah, I think it was, I think that was an omen of things to come.
Yeah.
I go back to that South Carolina game where they had given up like the most sacks in the country or among the world, and A&M didn't get to him at all.
Yeah.
Well, they got to him, they just couldn't tackle him. But yeah, I think basketball is different.
I agree.
Now, look, we're not saying that this is going to be a walkover win for A&M. Respect Yale. Absolutely respect Yale. I'm just saying, I believe that while some are going to pick Yale as the hot team to take as an upset, a possible and maybe improbable team to pull off an upset, I believe that A&M is better athletically, more physical, and more battle-tested. And I expect A&M to win the game.
Yep. Calvin says, Nuño, you've watched this team all year. When have the Ags not given up three-point shots to opponents? Boils down to Ags hitting higher percentage of their three-point attempts and hitting 75% on free throws. That's pretty much, they do that, they win games, for sure. And I can't disagree with him. But if this team, Yale, likes to slow the game down, and A&M is able to get more possessions, I like A&M's chances.
Yeah, I think A&M, you know what, I've looked up so many things statistically on Yale. You know what I haven't looked up? Is their rebounding. What kind of rebounding team they are.
I think they're actually a pretty good rebounding team for
right, and
for an Ivy League school. Reed, look that up for us.
So, because A&M rebounds the ball so well and gets second shots and things like that. So
they average 38.7 a game.
38.7. Do we know where that ranks nationally? I'll look it up.
No, we can look that up.
Talking.
All right. Well, we're going to talk to Shireen here in a minute.
Okay.
So why don't we hit a break here? We can reset some of these topics with Shireen. We're going to keep water local. If you care about this community, and I know you do, you care about your environment and your children's future here in Brazos and Robertson County, what you need to do is think about keepwaterlocal.org. Get involved today so you can help out with all the situations happening right here, because water is the lifeblood of everything we love about our home, our neighborhoods, our schools, our parks, and the quality of life that we enjoy. Right now, we're facing droughts, rising temperatures, and out-of-state interests in neighboring communities are working to take our most precious resource away from us, which is water. That's why we're asking you to consider keeping water local, or going to Keep Water Local, a coalition of your neighbors, local business leaders, and community voices united with one purpose: protecting our water, our future. Visit Keep Water Local and click Get Involved today. Together, we can ensure our water stays where it belongs, right here in our community, supporting our way of life for generations to come. It's Keep Water Local. Take our money to run to Denver, buddy. You looking forward to it?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Good.
Heck yeah.
TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Buffy's Catering Hotline. Shireen Williams of Pro Football Talk, the Aggie Hall of Famer, joining us here on the program. Shireen, good morning.
Good morning. And I want to say, whoever on the phone lines got it fixed to where I can hear you guys perfectly, job well done. Give whoever did that a raise. I can hear you guys so well today.
Really? So it's, that issue we had like 2 months ago was just ongoing. You were super sweet and never said anything about it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's why we love you,
that's
Shireen.
it.
Hey, this basketball team, mixed emotions, super excited about them being a 4 seed, even though I wish they were a 3 seed, but I understand why. I think they have a golden opportunity in front of them. The way they played down the stretch, does it concern you heading into this game against Yale?
Well, yeah, I think it has to. I mean, not playing very good basketball, but the one win they had in that stretch was a great win. And if they play like that, they can beat anybody in this field. They can be a Final Four team. They just have to play like that. Now, that's a challenge to play like that every single game. You know, you're not going to, so you hope that, you know, some of these games that you get some help. But this game will be challenging, as we know. But, look, if you can't beat Yale in the first round of this as a 4 seed, then you certainly don't deserve to advance, and you probably didn't deserve to be a 4 seed, frankly. I mean, this game you've got to win. It's a must-win, and you're favored to win, and you're favored to win for a reason, and you're 4 seed for a reason, and all those things. And, you know, Buzz is a good motivator, as we all know, and he'll have them ready, and I think they'll play well. I mean, you know, what I've read about Yale, I think you're concerned about their shooting, but on the other hand, we play really good defense. I don't know if they've played a defense quite like ours. It's really good, and we all know the rebounding and especially the offensive rebounding is very good. So, you know, just play like you did against Auburn, and all will be well, and hopefully we get to the second week of the postseason, second weekend.
How do you react when you see the stats on a team like Yale, and you see that they're in the top 10 nationally in scoring, and the top maybe 10 or 15 in three-point percentage, and top 25 in rebounding? How much does that impress you, or how much do you look at it and say, well, yeah, but you got to take into account, you know, who they're playing, the company you keep?
Oh, I definitely think you do that, Olin. I mean, I don't see that they've played an SEC schedule or anything close to it. And we all know by the number of teams. Now, I don't know that many SEC teams should have gotten into the tournament. When you win 6 SEC games, I don't know that you should get into the NCAA tournament. But having said all that, we all know the SEC was extremely good this year, and they've made basketball a priority, which they used to not do, and now they've become the best basketball conference in America. So the Aggies obviously are way more tested than Yale, and Yale hasn't seen anything like A&M. So, you know, on the other hand, three-point shooting has killed us all year. The games we've lost, I mean, we just watch guys sit back there and just make 3 after 3 after 3 wide open. So if we're going to do that and they're going to make threes, we're going to be in big trouble. So you're going to have to account for that, obviously, and I'm sure we will, and take that away. And if we do that and rebound like we know we can rebound, like we have rebounded all year, then I think we're going to be fine. I expect it to be a fairly close game, but I hope it's not. I hope we blow them out, but I expect it to be a fairly close game. I think 6.5 is the line. I'd probably take the Aggies over that, but I still think it's going to be a single-digit game, maybe 8 or 9 points that we win by, maybe late. And we also know that free throws are going to be extremely important, and we haven't been good at that. And we need to make our free throws if we're going to win some of these games. If we just hit free throws, shoot, we might be undefeated this year.
Shireen, what do you think about the Texans' latest moves over the last? We didn't talk to you last week, but the Laramie Tunsil trade, Kenyon Green trade. They signed Derek Stingley to a 3-year, $90 million deal. Apparently, it's the highest paid. He's the highest paid DB in the league. Just what do you think about some of these moves, which still their issues being that offensive line?
Yeah, they've still got to address the offensive line. I don't know how they're going to do that. I assume they're going to draft linemen with that first pick. Maybe Banks will be that first pick and step in and be their day one starter at left tackle. They've got to find a left tackle. Everything I've heard and read, they needed to revamp that room, and they certainly did. And Tunsil, yes, he was their best lineman, But by revamping the room, I don't mean just getting rid of players and changing the players. I think you had to change the culture in that room. Everything that's been said is that it was not a good culture in the room. And so they've gotten rid of the culture problems in the room and revamped the room, and they hope that helps the offensive line play better. But, yeah, they still need a left tackle for sure who's going to step in there and you can count on, and I think they'll get that through the draft. But they've got to play better than they did last year if they're going to have a better team. We all know that teams are built on the offensive line and defensive line, and if you don't have those two things, you're not going to be a very good football team. Just look at what the Eagles did this year. Their quarterback's okay. I mean, I'm not listing him as one of the top 5, probably not even one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. He's fine. He's not going to get you beat in most games, but, he's also not Tom Brady. He's not Peyton Manning. He's not any of those guys that we know. But they had the best offensive line, the best defensive line in football, and that's why they're Super Bowl champions today. If you have an offensive line and you have a defensive line, you're going to win a whole lot of games, and I think that's what the Texans are trying to do. Their defensive line was really good, one of the best in the NFL last season. I think they've only improved it this offseason, but that offensive line has got to play better.
Well, speaking of offensive line in the NFL, is there any reason to expect or to have any optimism at all concerning the Dallas Cowboys offensive line? Because I don't.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty much the same as we've seen. They're going to have to address theirs in the draft too, I think. And I agree with you. It certainly was better than the Texans last year, but it wasn't the offensive line that we've come to expect from the Cowboys. And they're going to have to do something to address that in the draft and early in the draft. And that's the problem, Olin, is you have. They did do more in free agency this year. I'll give them kudos for that. They did more in free agency this year than they've done in recent years. But they didn't address enough of their problems that they still, you start looking at the draft, you go, well, they got a hole here, and they got a hole here, and they got a hole here. And so they still have a whole bunch of holes. You still need a starting running back. Those running backs they sign are not starting running backs. And you're still going to be running back by committee as you were last year, and still not going to have a good running game if Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders are your top 2 running backs. You still need a rookie running back, great rookie class of running backs. They're going to draft a running back at some point. You still need another receiver. You still got to find a receiver who can, do what you want him to do across from CeeDee Lamb and takes the pressure off CeeDee Lamb. You still need that. To me, you still need to address that offensive line, whether it's at center, whether it's at guard, whether it's at tackle, whatever you're going to do, right? You've got to address that offensive line, and I would say it's the interior probably more than the tackles. But, Terrence Steele, how much faith do you have in him? I don't know. I think they still need to, even after re-signing Osa, I still think they need to address the defensive tackle position. Osa plays the 3 techniques, so you still need a good nose tackle in there. So, they still have a lot of issues and a lot of things to address before the start of the season, and you're not getting all of those in the draft. If you're depending on your draft, and if you're expecting to come out of that with 6 or 7 starters, that doesn't happen. You're going to get 2 or 3 starters, and if you get 2 or 3, you're good. But you're not getting 6 or 7 starters out of the draft.
Because we're talking about 2 of the areas where they're most concerned is a interior defensive lineman and the offensive line. And correct me if I'm wrong, didn't they draft to those positions in the first round, the last 2 drafts?
Yeah, they did. And those guys haven't gotten it done. And, Mozzie Smith. And
wasted draft picks, just like
haven't played well enough.
Yeah.
They haven't played well enough. So they are where they are now.
Hey, something to make us feel better, though. You were talking about offensive line being a key to a good team. When you project for Texas A&M next year, I'm seeing an offensive line coming back intact and a center coming back from injury and maybe 3 NFL players in that offensive line. What say you, Hall of Famer?
I completely agree, and I think that's where it starts. And if you had a good offensive line, you're going to be able to run the ball really well. You should be able to pick up some of those short yardage situations you didn't pick up last year, which was a key. And you should be able to protect the quarterback, which is a key, buying him some extra time to find those receivers. So that is a good – if you're looking for positives, it might be the number one positive on this team. They're going to should have a really good offensive line, and hopefully the defensive line is good as well. We all know that's the strength of Elko's, is building that defensive line. And again, if the offensive line and the defensive line are really good, they're going to be a good team. Period. End of story. That if you have those two things with the quarterback they have, they're going to be, and the running backs that they have, they're going to be a good team. That's the complete key to this team.
David, you'll never see a good defense that doesn't have a good defensive line, and you'll never see a good offense that
100%.
Doesn't have a good offensive line.
100%. Shireen,
100%.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's where it starts and that's where it finishes.
We appreciate you. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Shireen Williams, Pro Football Talk on the Buppy's Catering Hotline. We'll hit a break. We still got to do some performances of the week. We got some text messages to get into. OB's doing his research. Right now, we all feel good when we get our renewal. Insurance markets have beaten you down, whether it's your business, your farm, or your ranch, or your home, or your auto insurance. Don't intentionally or unintentionally let your coverage get cannibalized. A great relationship with the real subject matter, equipped with the full breadth of modern free market, is the answer. Go to RolloInsurance.com/TexAgs and find out how you can begin fighting back today. They will take amazing care of you. They do. Several of us here who work at TexAgs. They got 60 offices in Texas, but their headquarters is right here on Highway 6 in College Station. Call them up, 888-44-ROLLO. That's 888-44-ROLLO. Or go to RolloInsurance.com/TexAgs. About 3 hours away from leaving and heading to the airport to get to Denver at some point tonight.
Should get to Denver, I'm guessing around 6 o'clock their time, mountain time.
We'll get a good dinner in Denver?
Yeah.
Yeah, we should.
We're going to feed those mountain oysters to young Luke.
He won't be there until late tonight.
Oh, well,
he's taking a different flight.
No oysters for him.
So we got to party. That's what the bottom line is. We're hitting the club. All right? Bottle full of bug.
I partay.
Yeah, you partake in the partay.
I do, until like 11:15.
Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. We got a message that will get OB riled up.
Yes. So on the text hotline, Aggie fans should be way more. Sorry, Tom St. Martin says this. Aggie fans should be way more worried about San Diego than Yale. San Diego is really, really good, and they are definitely going to beat Michigan by causing tons of turnovers. And then to add on to that, San Diego is 8th in turnovers overall this season.
Okay, the reason how come that's wrong, respectfully,
you're not playing San Diego.
If you don't beat Yale, you won't play San Diego, assuming they do beat Michigan.
Yeah, and when we say, like, did he say worry about him?
Yeah, he says we should be more worried.
I've never worried about somebody I'm not playing.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
Like, I mean,
I don't even know if we're going to play them.
We might not. And
he says they're definitely going to beat Michigan.
Well, A&M has to definitely beat Yale.
Yes.
And then, if, by the way, they're thinking about San Diego as they go into the Yale game,
they'll lose.
Thank you. So I appreciate what you're thinking, that, San Diego's a really tough team, and they may be a huge test.
I have to admit, I've not seen UC San Diego play. I haven't seen UC San Diego. I haven't seen the University of San Diego, and I haven't seen San Diego State. I am 0 for San Diego.
We should go to San Diego.
I like San Diego. I've been there.
I used to live there.
I know that. Yeah, with the San Diego Sockers or
Look
Jaws
at you.
or something
Yeah.
like that.
Look at you.
I've been there a couple times for the Holiday Bowl.
I've never been to the Holiday Bowl. But
congratulations.
I've always wanted to go. But I think Texas lived there for a while, didn't they?
That's when I was there.
Yeah. Let's do a performance of the week. You had a good one for us.
Emily Kennedy, I wasn't there to see it, but she had 2 wins in a big series sweep. Maybe I don't want to use that word sweep too much, but that big series sweep at Auburn. Remember, they swept a ranked opponent on the road. And Emily Kennedy, 2 wins, including a 1-hit shutout in the last game.
That's great. Amari Harper reached base at each plate appearance,
Had a home
going
run.
2 hit by pitches, a walk. The junior finished the weekend 5 for 7, 2 home runs, 1 double, 5 RBI, and 3 runs scored.
She's good.
She is very good. And the Aggie men's golf team, you had something for us.
So A&M golfer Alex Long wrapped up Monday in 8th place. He's 3 over 147. He opened 4 over 76 in the morning with an eagle at the par 5, which was a 562 yard. It was the 10th hole. And then in his afternoon yesterday, he fired 3 birdies in a 1 under 71 round.
We got an eagle and 3 birdies, man. That guy was bird hunting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Obi. We'll be driving here shortly.
Yep.
As a reminder, the final segment of the program brought to you by Double Dave's. That's at 10:50. But right now, caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We're going to hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's. They've been serving Aggieland since 1984 with your favorite pizza and, of course, those world-famous pepperoni rolls. Reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com, and your favorites get louder on the way. TexAgs Live presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Performance of the week. We didn't mention Jaya Covington there because we mentioned her in the first segment. Do you have those numbers with us here since we gave her a headline?
Yes. So on Friday, she crossed the line at 794, which was her first time dipping below the 8-second mark. And so that broke her original record. And then again on Saturday, she hit a time of 7.9, winning the event by a hair, only by 0.01 seconds. But she did become the first Aggie to ever win the national title in the 60-meter hurdle.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. All right, it's now time for our weekly conversation with Josh Pate, brought to you by Academy, who carry a wide selection of the best brands, including Easton, Rawlings, and Wilson. And at Academy, you can shop for the latest bats, gloves, cleats, clothing, protective gear, training equipment, and much, much more. There he is, Josh Pate on the Buppy's Catering Hotline. What's up, Josh?
I'm doing good, David. You say protective gear is available at Academy, which is accurate. Now, I would assume 99.999% of the viewing audience thinks football helmet, baseball helmet, pads, which is probably what the ad read entails. However, you know I do a little storm chasing, right?
Yes, you do.
So one of the compliments of my life was actually a girl I grew up with who lives over in West Central Georgia, where they had bad weather the other day, sends me a video. I just saw it last night, even though she sent it a few days ago, in which she was walking through an Academy parking lot into Academy to get protective gear for potential tornadoes. Because as you know, head trauma is the most common form of injury in a tornado. So she went to buy the helmet, but it wasn't for baseball purposes, or purpi, the plural of purpose. So you can get protection from all different sorts of things at Academy.
Such as buying a cup.
Yes. Everything needs protection in every walk of life these days.
The reason I say that is our coach yesterday at Brazos Valley MMA said, you should probably invest in a cup because I keep getting kicked. So I'm just saying, you can use it for baseball, softball, you can use it for anything. All right. Hey, speaking of storm chasing, crazy storms last week. Were you able to make the treks?
Yeah. I drove 1,060 miles on Saturday.
Wow.
On the dot, 1060. Started in Columbus, Georgia, went up to Birmingham, down to Tuscaloosa, down to Hattiesburg, over to a bunch of different towns in southern Mississippi, back up to Laurel, back up to Meridian, Demopolis, Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Nashville. Those were the cities that we hit on Saturday. We struggled to see things because they were all rain wrapped. We were in 3 different tornadic circulations, just couldn't see much of anything. So I would love to tell you, hey, I brought pictures, I brought video. It's just a bunch of rain curtains. That's all you would see. And it was pretty harrowing. Don't want to make light of it because there was a lot of loss of life, tons of property damage, which they're still assessing. But it was an adventure. First chase of the spring, certainly not the last, but it was an adventure.
Hey, I'm sure I've asked you before, but just remind me, how'd you get into storm chasing? Like, how did this become one of your passions?
Well, when I was growing up, like I'm talking about really little kid, I would go to school. Both of my parents worked, so I would ride the bus to Meemaw's house and stay with her for a few hours every day until one of my parents got off work, come pick me up. So like many kids, I just laid on the floor, kind of like this, and I would watch SportsCenter on TV, but also I would also stay glued to the Weather Channel. So I really loved sports and atmospheric science and weather growing up. Then when Twister came out in the mid-'90s, I was just old enough to kind of go to movies and see it and get it. And ever since then, the concept of doing that hooked me, which is wild because if you consider the fact that I was terrified of roller coasters, water parks, etc. as a kid, you would think the last thing that would appeal to me is storm chasing. For some reason, it appealed to me. And I always said, if I ever get the means and the freedom to do it, I want to shape my spring where I can go do that. So covering college football is very beneficial in that vein.
So have you ever had any really scary incidents, storm chasing, like really scary?
Ton of them, yeah. We just passed the anniversary a couple of weeks ago of March 3rd, 2019. We were over in Beauregard, Alabama, EF4 tornado over there. We ended up having 23 fatalities in that tornado. All were within a quarter-mile radius of our pinpoint on the map where we were. And then a year to the day later, I had moved to Nashville to take this job, and our building, the building I'm in right now, got hit by another EF4 tornado. Been in 2 EF4s a year apart to the day, 2019, 2020. We had 25 fatalities in that one. 2 of them were right across the street from where I sit here. That's the only time I have taken shelter from a tornado in my adult life. Every other time I've been chasing them, but that was the only time I was in a building. I had to go underground. Very weird feeling, by the way, because that actually was a tornado that sideswiped this building. So, yeah, March 3rd, David. Be careful on March 3rd.
Josh, I think Deion Sanders is so famous that within a year or two apart, you can go from thinking he is just what's wrong with college football and you don't like his bravado and this and that, and at the same time, like, man, that's a really good idea. I like the idea of spring games with other teams, which has been brought up before, but he's actually got the stones to say, let's go do it, and looks like Fran Brown wants to do it too.
Yeah, I think that when people have said it in the past, it's been, very abstract of, hey, I wish we had real games for spring. That's where it ends. What you always needed was you needed a plan, and then you needed a runway long enough for the plan to be able to take off. I think we are seeing a little confluence of events here that I think is going to yield fruit on this front. All right, the first one is everybody's looking for money now. Every program's looking for added revenue streams. And I've known this part. I have known that media partners are there. CBS is there, Fox is there, ESPN, they've always been there. They've always looked at their spring lineup. It's desolate. After March Madness, there's nothing. And they have said, we would love to have inventory to put on these shelves. We will pay for inventory to put on these shelves. Well, if you're cash strapped or you're looking for added revenue streams, imagine ESPN giving you $1.5 or $2 million to play a spring game, and you go pay your FCS opponent that you would pay in the fall to come in, and you still end up making money, plus you have an actual real-life simulated event for the fans. The other part of that, David, I was talking to a couple of coaches about this yesterday that want to do it, is what stands in your way? And I asked every one of them, and many of them had spoken to their conference commissioners, and the feedback from the conference commissioners was as you would expect in a sport as loose as college football. It's, we don't think you're allowed to do it, but we're not sure because we don't know the rule. Like, it's just one of those classic, we haven't done it because no one else has ever done it before. So I think whoever's first, you'll have a ton of people tripping over themselves to not be third. Everyone wants to be second. Everyone wants to do it as soon as they figure out it's safe to do. I think this will happen. Now, I'm going to do a segment on my show tonight about this, because every time you mention a good idea, like I think we should breathe oxygen, I think we should drink water, there's going to be someone who comes back and says, I don't know, it doesn't sound like such a great idea. So on this, I've had people come back and say, well, it increases your exposure to injury. False. It takes away from the development time, whatever in the world that means. I also had someone who said, well, you shouldn't be forced to put things on tape and to play a game on spring if you don't want to. So very easy solutions here. First off, if you don't want to do it, don't. I haven't seen anyone, David, to my knowledge, suggest that you should be mandated to play a spring game. It's you should have the option to play it. Secondly, the injury concern. This is what I'm fascinated by. I've asked everybody who tells me you increase injury exposure by playing a real spring game to walk me through the logic. Because best I can tell, in the old way of doing things on spring, Saturday, everybody on the field was one of your players. In the new way of doing things, only half the players on the field would be your players, which, correct me if I'm wrong, cuts your exposure to injury in half. And thirdly, as you know, because you've attended many football practices, they go good on good every day in practice. There is at least some 11-on-11 live ball period almost every day in practice. It's happening in practice. It's not, oh, we're going to simulate a game. Now these guys are really going to play football and risk getting hurt. No, they're not. Thirdly, I guess I'm on the third or fourth, most of the spring games had turned into thud games anyway. They weren't tackling to the ground, which you can control even in this setting. Fourthly, the development piece. Every coach I've spoken to said the same thing. We don't just want a spring game against an opponent. If we have it, we want to do it like the NFL does, where if I'm going to play North Carolina, if I'm Colorado, and I want to play North Carolina, hint, by the way, we bring them into Boulder, and then they come in on Monday, and we practice Monday, and we practice Tuesday and Wednesday, off day Thursday, then we play the spring game Saturday. They have a whole week of workouts, of organized activities against each other to where the development is maxed out. It's actually wonderful, and your guys don't have to keep hitting each other over and over again. So these are many of the benefits I see. I've still yet to be walked through any legitimate downside.
Josh, can that limit transfers, and how would you limit transfers if you could be the commissioner?
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's the one downside. That's the only current, present day downside is you're putting your full team on display for everyone to watch and scout on TV for the spring portal to then raid your roster. The reason I didn't address that is I think the spring portal is about to be a thing of the past. So I don't think that that's going to be an issue. That'll be a moot point in the future. So you asked me what I would do. I would get rid of the spring portal. Do whatever it takes to get rid of the spring portal. It's a terrible idea. It's a terrible concept. And I also think, David, this is a whole nother conversation, but I do think with revenue stream or revenue sharing and the way that's going to be structured in the future, I think there's going to be an incentivization structure to make you want to stay on a roster, to make you want to stay and be more vested in your revenue share as a sophomore, as a junior, as a senior, to where you don't have to make anything illegal. You don't have to outlaw transferring or anything. Just if I'm paying you enough money at TexAgs and you get the parking spot you want and you got great benefits, I don't have to make it illegal for you to leave. You don't want to leave. You don't want to go anywhere. And it should be the same way in revenue sharing. Instead of this backwards approach they're trying to take right now, some are trying to take, where they're trying to bake in all these buyout clauses. And if a kid leaves and breaks his NIL deal, then he should have to pay. I get that. The logic makes sense to me, but it's also going to play terribly in public theater. You're going to get negative recruited the moment you try and recoup losses NIL-wise against a kid. It doesn't need to be that way. You can still accomplish the same thing, but you can accomplish it in your revenue share structure.
Josh, let's play a game. If I were to tell you A&M's defensive line, spring practice starts this week, Coach Elko's going to meet with the media tomorrow. They start on Friday. If I were to tell you that A&M's defensive line will be top 8 in the SEC, that's the only information I'm going to give you other than what you already know about the program. What happens?
If they're going to be top 8 in the SEC, they'll have a reachable chance in every game. Which means it's going to be the one possession games and turnovers are going to be the two talking points of the season, because I know people think, the quarterback position will be the talking point. I will be able to blindly trust that they'll be good enough at that position to where if D-line is top half of the SEC, you also bake into, I say baked in too much, but you bake into that statement the possibility that they could be the best. They could be number 3, they could be number 2 as much as they could be number 8. I think it puts him in the SEC championship conversation in mid-November, like the down the stretch moment, which is where it's really all you can ask for. Like last year. Yeah. Last year they beat Texas, they go to Atlanta. Okay, well, as late as Thanksgiving Thursday, you and I could have been at the dinner table and we wouldn't know if A&M was going to Atlanta or not. What we would know is everything that's happened up to this point put us in position to where we got a shot. We control our own destiny. So I think if they get that, they control their own destiny through the duration of the season. And then at that point, you take your chances.
All right, follow-up question. Same criteria. Marcel Reed, top 8 quarterback. Then what happens with A&M?
That's a little bit more of a mystery to me, actually, because I think you can be the 8th best quarterback in the SEC this year and not be anything to write home about. Now, that could not be the case, but if we were to come into this year and you were to look at, the lineup, the Phil Steele Preview Magazine lineup of quarterbacks, and you went 9 or 10 deep with returning starters, guys you thought you could trust, that'd be one thing. We don't have that in the league this year. There's a chance that there's a number 1, number 2, and then a steep drop off to number 3 even, much less getting all the way down to number 8. So you could have the 8th best stat profile at quarterback in this conference this year and be on a team that loses 6 games for all I know. I feel better for some reason. I feel better when you guarantee me about the D-line. And I'll just take my chances at quarterback. Right. Because I don't think just being top 8 conditionally this year, I don't think being top 8 alone is good enough to guarantee me anything.
All right, I'm going to add some qualifiers to it. You have a top 8 defense, okay? Let's say between 5 and 8. Marcel between 5 and 8. But you also know about that running back room, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And if healthy, I think they'll be top 3 running back rooms in the SEC. That's my homer opinion, but I think I stand by it if they're healthy. Offensive line, they're returning everybody, okay? Potentially there. So with that kind of scenario, it sounds to me that you're not as concerned about the offense as you are of what the defensive product is because of what we saw last year, getting after the quarterback towards the end of the season and also giving up big tackles or not getting tackles.
Well, yeah. I mean, Elko wasn't questioning the offense in that press conference after the bowl game. So you are correct. That's how I feel. However, I'm glad you mentioned that. So yeah, everything I'm thinking is predicated off. I've got things I trust about the team, the offensive line, returning production being one of them. When I was over there the other day, we were setting up to talk to Elko, and a bunch of offensive coaches ended up walking through, talked to a bunch of them. But I remember Colin Klein walked by, just kind of asking him how you feel going into spring, and first thing out of his mouth is returning production on that offensive line, man. It makes all those routes look a lot better on paper when they can actually be run the way you want them to instead of ending up all squiggly in the post-game QCR. So I think that if you gave me those things, then I would call A&M a top 4 candidate in the SEC. So at that point, we shaved the pool considerably. Only thing I would worry about. So if you tell me D-line's top 5 to 8, Reed is top 5 to 8, I do agree with you. If all that falls into place, even if it doesn't, the running game probably will be very good. If it does fall into place, probably be extremely good. D-line being top 5 to 8 means you probably don't have to score 40 a game to win. I would think they're right there. And then the only question I would have is, does Arch Manning turn into a transcendent star at Texas? Does someone in the conference separate? Which I don't see right now, but it's also March right now. If that doesn't happen, they're a candidate to win the SEC.
How big of a year is this for Colin Klein, considering he was a hot name when A&M got him last year? I don't know if he fell out of favor. I mean, the offense was good. It wasn't what we wanted it to be, but he had some injuries. There's some questioning about the offense. I think I'd like to see what he can do with Marcel with a full offseason, gearing the offense towards him. How big of a year is it for Colin Klein?
It's a big year, but I mean, he'd probably just tell you, well, every year is a big year. These guys, what I respect about them is you hardly ever hear them making excuses publicly, but you and I know, as well as anyone, that there are 37 different reasons when if a season doesn't work out, it didn't work out. That doesn't necessarily fall on their shoulders. I don't get paid to make excuses for coaches, nor do I. But sometimes logically, there is an understandable reason why things happened or didn't happen in this case. And like you said, it wasn't an anemic offense last year or anything like that. But I do believe that a lot of these guys' system works if everything's clicking. Okay, they wouldn't accidentally stumble into that job if their system didn't work. The name of the game in college is having a malleable enough system to where if things are operating at B- efficiency levels, you can still squeeze a winner out of it. Most everybody's offense is going to click if you got the LSU 2019 lineup on the field. Everybody's system will click then. But what if you're thin on the right side of the offensive line? What if you don't really have a true number 2 receiver? What if you get banged up at tailback in fall camp? Can you do the Chip Kelly basically? Can you snake your way, game plan by game plan, changing week over week? Can you snake your way to a top 25, top 30 offensive finish? That's the skill. Like that's where you separate in college football to me.
You fill out your bracket yet?
I did not. I did not quite yet, but I have realized I've paid the least amount of attention to college basketball this year as I have in a long time, which makes me feel great about March and April, because those are the people who used to school me when I did watch college basketball hardcore. So in a strange way, me not being able to tell you who the head coach at Virginia Tech right now is or wherever makes me feel oddly confident that I'm about to smoke people in March Madness brackets.
I think you said it well. My youngest daughter always wins our bracket, or my wife, and they watch zero college. Well, actually, my youngest daughter watches the Aggies. That's about it. Josh, great stuff, man. We'll talk to you next week.
Appreciate it, David.
See you, man. Josh Pate here on TexAgs Live. Seriously, Isla does watch every Aggie basketball game there is. She's into it. I don't think she watches Virginia Tech. I don't think she watches Yale, but she will this week. All right, we'll hit a break. We'll come back. Matthew Dawson. Maybe we'll change his name to the Algorithm. I don't know. That's probably not a good one. Algo. Is that Algo a good nickname for him? We'll come up with a nickname for Matthew Dawson. Right now, Heritage Films, the website, yourheritagefilm.com. They make documentary films about families, about family businesses, about family ranches, about family stories. Whatever the cool family story is in your life, how about telling that documentary or telling that in a documentary form? Whatever it may be. It could be, a near-death experience and how it brought your family together. It could be the yearly turkey bowl that you and your buddies get together. It could be about how you found your family ranch and all the stories behind it. There's so many different stories that Chance and his crew can do for your family and have it done in a 2-hour documentary form that you can have and preserve it for the next generation and the generation after that. The website is yourheritagefilm.com, yourheritagefilm.com. Call them up, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341 is Heritage Films. I think breakfast person, Matthew Dawson.
I'm not a huge breakfast guy, but in the office they got beef jerky sticks, whatever, just and some cheese. Normally I make myself a nice little charcuterie board, courtesy of TexAgs. That's pretty nice.
That's an interesting thought for a breakfast charcuterie board. I don't think of it that way. Hey, we were trying to come up with this TexAgs Live, by the way. Good to see you guys. Presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. We're trying to come up with a nickname for you. You're smart, right? We thought the algorithm. Was it you who said that's like a bad guy in a comic book?
Well, he was saying that it was more like a villain's name, and I'm just like, thinking about all the names that Olin has called me, over the last year, and I'm just thinking there's probably a lot of nicknames out there that he's thrown out there that, just gone over our heads a little bit that have, maybe been a little bit hurtful, but it's fine. I'll forgive.
Well,
I just won't fill out his expense report next time for him.
So we're excited about something that TexAgs is releasing. It's kind of a beta form, but we're going through a TexAgs college basketball, model where, and tell me if I explained it in the first segment correctly. It's an algorithm that basically simulates games for this NCAA tournament 10,000 times?
Correct.
And it's going to give you the highest likelihood of whatever happens. And I kind of equate it to, I used to do this as a kid. I would simulate Madden football games and NBA Live to wonder what would happen in the Rockets season or the Mavs season or the Oilers season as a kid. I'd only simulated once or twice, but I would all right, I'm going to put this player on here and simulate. This actually takes real data. I'm doing a lot of talking. You should be doing talking. And spits out some info. So take it from there.
Correct. I mean, this doesn't even look at wins, all right? Throw wins out of the bucket, right? You're just looking at stats, and these are stats that are publicly available. TexAgs isn't paying, additional for any sort of data, which is, pretty crazy that it's, able to be as accurate as it is over the last 10 years that it's been back tested. But you're looking at this thing and you're just looking at, okay, how does team A match up with team B given these stats, right? And given this, strength of schedule, right? Because, a team that shoots, 38% from three in one conference may be different, in a different conference where teams are defending the three better. Right. The question that you have to ask yourself is how do you correlate all of this, right? How do you it isn't just averaging out. If one team shoots 40% from three and another team is holding teams to 20% from three, you're not just averaging it together, right? There's
other metrics that go into it.
There's other, correlations that you have to look at. There's a lot of different things. So from that, we're able to determine an output by simulating games 10,000 times in what's called a Monte Carlo. You're able to basically output statistically the most likely outcomes. That's what Vegas does as well. They don't necessarily run a Monte Carlo, but they will run, simulations of games, and they will post, a line, right, which is their version of the statistically most probable outcome. And then, that's what people are, betting on, the spreads or the lines is what we call them. So here I'm basically making, lines themselves and then basically determining the outcomes of games based on that. So from that, it likes A&M a lot.
Okay, so how can the TexAgs subscriber benefit from this? Because we're going to have some information that people can look at and be like, all right, 10,000 times. Does it tell you how many times A&M won, or does it tells you all that?
Yep,
right?
It'll tell you that. And
have you run the A&M Yale one?
I have run the A&M Yale one. It likes Texas A&M a lot. So Las Vegas has Texas A&M favored by about 7.5 points,
right,
which is winning. That would be like Vegas saying A&M wins about 65% of the time, 70% of the time. TexAgs college basketball algorithm's got them winning 85% of the time.
Is that right?
Now I will say that it's a lot more likely that this algorithm, this model for TexAgs, is highly emphasizing A&M's ability to offensive rebound. And being able to steal possessions like that, on paper, is really, really valuable when you simulate it and average it over 10,000 games. However, it's really volatile, right? You can think about matchups where A&M did not reach those rebound margins that they did in particular games, and you saw them lose, So they don't reach those rebounding margins, they're not reaching their, average or their ceiling. So that's what makes it, when I'm running these Texas A&M games, against Yale, the deviation, meaning the average, range of, your normal range of outcomes is, within, 15 points of, whatever line you come up with. For A&M, it's at, 18 points. So, your range of outcomes is way bigger in Texas A&M games just because of their highly likelihood to take over games with offensive rebounding or not take advantage of that with offensive rebounding because of how kind of random. It really is.
So
it's pretty interesting.
As people are filling out their brackets, they can basically go to TexAgs here at some point over the next day or so, right? And it'll have, how will it work? Because I know there's people that are going to be bragging at the office, dude, I did the algorithm, I'm good.
Yeah, so they're basically will just have the information on like what the games will look like, round to round, but also the bracket itself, right? Like what is the algorithm's most likely predicted bracket? It has some surprises in there for sure, but you basically fill out your brackets. It's not going to predict it 100%.
No.
Right? Because the chances of predicting 100% are crazy. In fact, in the bracket, we have Auburn winning it, winning the national championship, most likely, right? But we only have them winning it about 8% of the time. So, really, like, if Auburn doesn't win the national championship, that's the algorithm kind of working, right? Like, it's like 92% of the time, they're not going to actually win it.
So, does it have upsets?
It does.
Oh!
It has some first-round upsets.
Vamos, let's go. Because, I can predict winners. Like, I can predict
100%.
one seed wins. Yay, over.
Yeah, and I think, like, this will more tell you, like, where's the value in some of these teams that, like, have a higher ceiling than maybe their seed tells you. Like, for example, like, even though Louisville would have to draw Auburn in the second round, like Louisville statistically is a very good team. I know people on Twitter have been joking like that they actually switched like their and Memphis's seeds, but like Louisville, very good team. Scary team for Creighton in the first round, scary team for Auburn in the second round. Like low-key, like we have that model as like a pretty close game. On the other side of the bracket, I'm looking at VCU as an 11th seed, and I've seen like other basketball heads, data analytics people talk about like, yeah, this might be the best 11 seed, like metrically, that we've ever seen. But they play in the A10, right? So they don't have the benefit of the strong resume, but from a metric standpoint, from a data standpoint, this is a really good team. So they're going to be playing BYU in the first round. We have VCU beating BYU in the first round, and then also like very barely edging out Wisconsin, right? The runner-up in the Big Ten, who's a 3 seed in the second round.
Right.
And then also you look at, in A&M's bracket in particular, San Diego, UC San Diego. I know there was a texter that was talking earlier. Hey, that's a pretty good team. College basketball algorithm for TexAgs has them beating Michigan, and then A&M, slightly edging out UC San Diego in that one. So UC San Diego, a team that slows it down a lot, shoots really good threes, can pass the ball really effectively, doesn't turn the ball over a lot. So there's upsets like that all over the place.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, it's got A&M beating Yale, beating San Diego, then obviously losing to Auburn.
In a close game.
In a close game. Now, and this will repopulate when the rounds are done.
Correct. And it'll take into effect new data that we saw from the first rounds, right? And there's also some other situations as well, like, if A&M is, predicted to beat UC San Diego, likely they're going to be predicted to beat Michigan, and that's the case here as well. We also like Texas A&M's matchup against Michigan State, quite frankly, which is interesting. So we do value, like, this algorithm values Texas A&M a lot more, and I think it is because it's hyperinflating the value of maybe offensive rebounds, but maybe for good reason, right? Because, like, when you saw what happened when that rebound margin in that Auburn game against what at the time was the best team in the country, and they absolutely floored them when they were able to reach their potential in their rebounding margin. So, yeah, by all metric accounts, like, Texas A&M team is good enough statistically from that profile, and as everyone's talked about their resume, they're good enough to do a lot of things in this tournament.
And again, for those of you who are going to use this to help you fill out your brackets, or if you drive to Louisiana and want to, have some fun, this is not guaranteeing anything. This is just telling you, based on these metrics and these numbers, this is the most likely outcome. But teams have game plans. Teams can change it up. Correct,
100%. And also, too, like, sure, the average Texas A&M margin of victory is double digits, but when you run the game 10,000 times, Texas A&M versus Yale, Yale wins 15% of the time, 1,500 times, out of 10,000. So, like, just because, like, there's an average margin of victory doesn't mean that, like, your range of outcomes is still quite large in a lot of these games, because that's the nature of basketball. That's the nature of March.
Do we know when this will be available on TexAgs?
Hopefully very soon. So within
the next day or so.
Yeah, and it'll just have information on like the individual games themselves, and it'll also have Texas A&M's or TexAgs' algorithms predicted bracket as well. So you can use that kind of data, for your sort of bracket. I would recommend, combining that data with also, maybe the eye test, maybe
eyeball test, yeah.
The eyeball test, how you feel, and you can actually use this. I'll be posting it round by round, like from a sports betting perspective. Things like this are pretty valuable as well. So. It's not necessarily something to take by heart, for every individual game. You got to look at them individually, right? And make sure you're analyzing like injuries, certain coaching matchups, streakiness. Like there's certain things that data necessarily won't always tell you, because I'm sure OB would sit here and scoff at this data thing, but it is real, and it's a real opportunity for.
It's a guide. It can help
is a guide. 100%.
It can help you. You shouldn't rely on 1,000%, but it can help you make an educated decision.
Correct.
Mr. Dawson, thank you, buddy.
You got it.
Appreciate you. All right. If you want to do that, it'll be on the premium boards here on TexAgs in the next 24 hours. Your car wash tradition with the friendliest staff is Aggieland Express Car Wash. They got 2 great locations, the original on William D. Fitch behind the Shipleys in South College Station, and you've got the newest location, 2528 South Texas Avenue in College Station, across from the Planet Fitness. Both places offer all the wash options you want. In fact, they offer a unlimited monthly membership package starting as low as $19.95. But that Texas Avenue location does offer the full-service wash. They're going to take care of all the cleaning, the drying, the vacuuming, you name it. And they have 3 levels of full-service washes. And we're going to give one away. Does someone want to try the basic full-service wash at the new location at Aggieland Express? All you got to do is be the first caller. You'll get a $40 value, 979-693-1150. That first caller will get that $40 value. It is Aggieland Express Car Wash, the Texas Avenue location. Welcome back to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Our next guest is the all-time winningest coach in Yale men's basketball history. He's established himself as one of the Ivy League premier basketball minds, and now he prepares for another challenge as he takes on Texas A&M with the 4 seed there in Denver. We'll be there all for it. James Jones joining us here on TexAgs Live on the Buppy's Catering Hotline. Coach Jones, how are you?
I'm great. How you doing?
I'm well. So I was reading up on you before this interview. You've been there for a minute. You've been with Yale for quite a while. Talk about your time there, establishing a culture, then recreating that culture through many different incarnations.
Well, yeah, it's been a minute, like you said. I started when I was 35 years old back in 1999, and you never would have thought that 26 years later I'd be still sitting in the same seat for the most part. That wasn't something that went through my mind. I didn't get into the job thinking that this was going to happen. You know how college basketball is. It's a rarity to have an opportunity to be at one place this long. I do have a daughter who's 28 years old, and she told me when she was like 12 that I couldn't get another job until she graduated high school. So I guess I took that and kept it moving a little bit. And, we've got to win a championship here in my 3rd year. And we were pretty much even there, around 500 for the most part throughout those rest of the year, although we were really good in our league, finishing in the top half each and every year. But it hasn't been to the last 10 or 15 years that we've started to really move the ball in the right direction and have a program and build a program that you could feel really good about and have a great deal of success. And over the last 10 years, it's been nothing short of amazing for us and our community in Yale Nation.
So you're one of these teams that people look at when brackets come out, even before. I remember seeing Yale A&M matchups before the brackets came out, like, ooh, you don't want to get Yale. What is it about your teams that you all are fearless when it takes on some of the bigger opponents last year with Auburn, I think in 2016, Baylor as well?
Well, I think what happens is that, coaches have an idea who we are. I know Buzz Williams does a great job, and he's a tremendous coach, savant in a lot of ways with the game of basketball. But the community and people around don't really understand what Ivy League basketball is all about. They think of a slow down, backdoor kind of a game. But those of us who really understand basketball know that we're really pretty good. Our best player from last year, Danny Wolf, transferred, and he went to Michigan, and he's going to be an NBA lottery pick. And he played for us last year when we played Auburn. And we lost another kid, Matt Noling, as a grad transfer to USC. And we lost our best shooter in the history of Yale basketball in terms of percentage, August Mahoney. So we lost those three guys, and somehow we're better offensively and defensively. So those in the know we're pretty good. I mean, we certainly have a challenge ahead of us. Playing the SEC team, playing Texas A&M. So it's going to be a big challenge for us. But, we have some experience playing at this level, and we feel good about our opportunity.
So I apologize for not knowing, but have your teams always been having a knack for the three-point shot? I'm looking at, you've got so many guys shooting over 38%. Is that because you've evolved with basketball? Is it something that the kind of kids that you recruit? How do you guys become such a deadly team from three?
Well, our league is the best league in the country in terms of three-pointers made. So maybe it's the kind of kid we get. We may not be as athletic as the kids in the SEC in some ways, but we may shoot it a little bit better. So I think it's just the kind of kid, the personality you get. And most everybody in our league, 1 through 5, shoots 3. So that's just something that's inherent within the teams that we play. So we actually are the best three-point shooting percentage team, but we also take less than everybody else. So we take good ones. And we have more of an inside game than most other teams in our league that gives us more of a balance offensively.
You mentioned something a moment ago that Danny Wolf could be a lottery pick. And just knowing that you can recruit players that are going to be NBA lottery picks and guys that continue to have big careers, but also have careers as CEOs and whatever it may be, great businessmen. Talk a little bit about the kind of kids that or young men that you recruit.
Well, we like to think whatever it is that you want to become, you can become that from Yale. So if you want to be a CEO, if you want to be an astronaut, if you want to be a politician, if you want to be an NBA basketball player, you could do that from this place because it's been done. I think that's what's really important here. You won't be a first anything from Yale. with the history of this place and the number of people that have gone through the doors. It's a tremendous academic institution, but we've built a basketball program that's really special.
How do you all recreate maybe some of the speed you'll see against a Big Ten team, against an SEC team? Because I see your non-conference, you are no stranger to playing big-time programs.
Yeah, it's hard now, though. We can't get those teams to play us non-conference. Matt Painter played us because he and I are friends. We're both on the USA Basketball Committee for the 1800 national team. And we played Minnesota the day after Danny Wolf went into the portal and transferred to Michigan. They decided they want to play us. So, it's just hard. And we don't have any high major games on our schedule for next year. That being said, we're built to play anybody in the country. I mean, that's the idea and that's the philosophy that we want to have. We don't feel like we're any different than the kids at or the programs in your conference. So we feel really good about who we are and what we do, and we like to lace them up and challenge anybody that cares to step in front of us.
I hope I'm saying his name correctly. Tell me a little bit about John Polidikis, who looks like he can shoot. He scores quite a bit for you. Tell me about his game.
John Poulikitis. And John is a tremendous, he's the best tough shot maker that I've ever coached. And I had a kid by the name of Azar Swain that was a tremendous tough shot maker. John is just, he's got an uncanny ability to make shots that, it's like I liken it to watching guys play pool, and like you see a shot that this guy takes that you didn't even see that shot. And John can do stuff like that on the court, but he practiced that stuff. He spends a lot of time in the gym. He and our point guard, Bez Imbang, are two of the hardest workers I've ever coached. And they've spent more time in the gym than most anybody. And, they trying to hone their craft. They want to play at the next level. They will have opportunities to play at the next level. So it's great to coach kids that care that much about this sport as I do.
Texas A&M is an interesting team because they don't shoot the ball well, but when they're hot, they're extremely hot. We've seen that a couple of times this year. But their ability to get after the rebounds and offensive rebounds, just just give us a little bit of your perspective of what you've seen on film from Texas A&M.
Well, as I said, you watch them play defense and you're trying to figure out what exactly they're in. Are they in man, or are they in zone, or are they in switching man? Are they in a matchup zone? What is it that they're doing? It's kind of like organized chaos defensively. And then on offense, I like to say back in the old days, they like to chuck and chase it. So we'll get up on the rim and we're going to go get it. They're the number one offensive rebound team in the nation by KenPom. So they do a great job at getting on the rim and chasing the ball down and getting extra opportunities. And that's been all the difference for them. That's what it's really given them a lot of success. They don't really have any bad losses. Most of the teams that they've lost to have all been really good, high-quality teams. That's going to happen when you're playing an SEC. So we have our work cut out for us, and we're going to try to get a practice in tomorrow and on Wednesday and get ourselves ready to play a game.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Buzz. What do you know about him? He's obviously been around the coaching ranks for quite a while. He's had different types of teams in the past. Just some thoughts on Buzz Williams.
Yeah, Buzz, like you can tell, Buzz is a really good basketball coach. He's a really good basketball mind. And I'm sure he could rattle off, the history of basketball and other things. He's a really interesting person. I've listened to him a few times. He's talked about, the history of our country and the presidents and writing everything down. He's just a different guy. But I think he does an outstanding job at coaching his team, and his teams are always really well coached. And that's why I call it organized chaos, what they do on defensively, because there's a rhyme and a reason of everything that he does. There's nothing he doesn't do without a reason for it. So I appreciate the way he coaches and how hard he does and how into he is into his basketball team and trying to get them to be the best versions of themselves.
This probably goes back to something you mentioned earlier, the types of players that you recruit, but your team does not turn the ball over a lot. A&M not only loves to get the rebounds, as most teams, they try to force turnovers. What is it about your team that protects the ball so well?
Well, just decision-making. I think that our guys are really good at making the right decisions and trying to find each other. We have guys that are really good passers, and I think that's a big part of that, right? In our last game, we had 2 turnovers to the last second, and we had a third because the officials had a blunder. So taking care of the ball was paramount for us and trying to get a good shot. That's really important. So Texas A&M are going to pose some issues for us because of the trapping in the half court and the full court, and some of the different schematics, some schemes that they do defensively is going to be a little different than what we normally see. So we're going to have to be on our toes and ready to play.
Coach, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for making a few minutes, and I hope to see you there when we get to Denver.
Well, listen, you take care of yourself and go Astros.
There we go. Great answer there. Take care, Coach. Thank you so much. Fun. For those who didn't know, before the interview started, he had the Yankees hat on, and I'm just doing small talk. I was like, Coach, I'm sorry, I'm an Astros fan. He's like, that's fine. I appreciate the Astros. So he was cool. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with some text messages before we start the 10 o'clock hour. It's TexAgs Live. And we're back here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. We go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Reed, Neal, tell me something good.
Okay, I'm going to try and get this off fast. So Jim from Temple.
Hi, Jim.
Texted, on the hotline. He says, we got to remember this Yale team bounced Auburn in the first round last year. I attribute it to H.C. Bruce Pearl likely warned his players in pregame prep how'd they play us. They didn't listen or take their coach seriously. Took an it's only Yale attitude. That's how and why Yale beat him. Middle Tennessee also did rugged Mitch Saint a few years back. These mature Ags know all this, need to play and make a statement and impose their will on Yale or anyone else. Solo's initial reaction isn't that the team beat Auburn. Solo is a sharp dude.
All right, couple things about that. I don't know why Yale beat Auburn. I don't know because they didn't take them serious. I mean, they did have one of their best players foul out in the first few minutes, and Yale is really good, right? There can be many things. And so, I don't know. Look, A&M is going to have to be really good to beat Yale. That's the bottom line. They're going to have to play great basketball to win this game. I think they're going to win this game. I think they're going to be too physical for Yale. I think they're going to be too defensive for Yale. But if they get off their shots, it could be a rough one. So let's listen to Dawson and the algorithm. In 10,000 times, 85% of it has A&M winning. I'm hoping it's going to be on the 85%. All right, we'll hit a break. We'll come back. Luke will be next. It's TexAgs. All right, we're back. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Luke Evangelist in studio to break down some more Aggie basketball. So, look, I've done this for a long time, Luke. I know how this goes. It's kind of like a football week, where as you're preparing for a matchup, you've got so many different days in and out, like reasons they can beat you, reasons A&M's going to dominate them. Then you find like new angles that you didn't think of by Wednesday, and then the game time shows up. Throw all that stuff out the window because it's going to come down to cliche execution and game plan and yada yada yada. since Sunday afternoon when it was announced it was going to be Yale, which I think we both thought before it was going to be Yale. Didn't we both say it? Like, have you gotten more encouraged for A&M, or have you started to get a little bit more panicky?
Well, so initially, probably about a week or two ago, when I was just looking at who was probably going to be a 12, who was going to be a 13, who was going to be a 14, depending on what seed A&M would get, I knew that Yale was probably a team that A&M wanted to avoid on the 13 line.
Mm-hmm.
Between Yale and High Point, there's definitely a drop-off between Yale and High Point, and then I think the other two are like Akron and I can't remember who the other 14,
but there's a drop-off.
13 seed is, but there's a drop-off, and that's just who A&M was matched up with. You can't do anything about it. You simply have to go play the game, because Yale, to me, when I initially looked at it, I was like, man, they are built exactly how you want to build a team to beat A&M.
Yeah.
They can take away A&M's offensive rebounding. They can take away their best player. They've got the 3-time Ivy League Defensive Player of the Year, and they can shoot the three. So that is 3 areas that if you were building a team to beat A&M, you would build a team like Yale. But when the more I look at the matchup, I'm like, Yale's interior defense, like even with the 3-time Ivy League Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year, they're still 117th in defense. They're giving up 80 and 90 points to Ivy League offenses. If A&M plays their game and is physical and uses their athleticism, this should be an A&M win. And so I've been seesawing back and forth. I'm like, Yale does all these great things, but A&M's been doing these things well in their formula against the best competition all year. This is a team that, when you look at all the ratings and metrics, would have been A&M's 6th or 7th toughest opponent in non-conference. So I've seen A&M put it together against more talented teams, but can they do it for 40 minutes in March? That's the key.
All right, so some of the bigger opponents that Yale took on, was it Purdue? How do they rebound against them? Do we know that? Reed, look
I don't have it off the top of my head.
Look at some of their big-time opponents and how they rebounded, because I hear that they're a very good rebounding team.
Yeah, they played Yale. They played themselves. Of course, they played themselves. They played Purdue. They played Akron, but that's about it. They played Minnesota and lost, and Minnesota was not very good. But their defensive rebounding is the key. Offensive rebounding is not really their game. Total rebounding, they're similar in number to A&M. A&M's top 10, Yale is top 30 nationally in total rebounding, but that's because they focus so heavily on defensive rebounding. There seems to be a notion that I've seen people say that Yale doesn't have size or Yale isn't a big team.
They have 6'10", dude.
Yeah, they have 6'10", 6'7", 6'6", 6'6", and 6'4". That's their starting lineup.
Yeah.
So they are committing all their resources to defensive rebounding to make sure that they don't give any opponents any extra chances. Of course, because they're an Ivy League team, they take only smart shots, and they know exactly what to do to limit other teams from getting more opportunities. So A&M, luckily, they prioritize offensive rebounding. So it's going to come down to, can A&M's physical presence, look at the offensive rebounding numbers against a Florida, in Alabama, teams that are built to rebound and out-rebound A&M. I think A&M held their own in those games. So when you look at that matchup of A&M's,
a completely more athletic, physical kind of rebounding team.
So, and that's another thing is the physicality that Yale plays with. Sure, they have size, but when was the last time they saw a team that is going to roll out body after body? Okay, you've had enough of rebounding against Pharrell Payne and Anderson Garcia. Here's Henry Coleman and Solomon Washington. And that depth and that physical presence and the athleticism should begin to overpower Yale as the game goes on.
If A&M hits 70% of their free throws,
okay,
and they win the offensive rebounding battle, as they typically do, and they shoot 30% from 3, I'm not going to give you any other metric for Yale. Is that enough to win?
I don't. Well, that's a great question, because sometimes
I think they do win.
It doesn't come down to what A&M does, because all that could happen and Yale could still make 60% of their threes, and they could make 15 threes and never turn the ball over, because that's another thing is what A&M's defense prides themselves on. It's not always about what A&M does offensively. It's about what happens between Yale's offense and A&M's defense. Because if Yale doesn't turn the ball over like they never do, and they hit threes like they typically do, that's a problem for A&M's defense. So even if A&M executes all those things offensively, I can't predict the game with only half of what's going to happen.
Well, let's talk about the way teams hit threes on A&M.
Yeah.
Typically, to me, when teams get hot, it's that third guy I always talk about, right? It's not the second guy you're thinking about, it's that third guy. And it's because the defense is scrambling and their double teams are so good, but eventually somebody's going to be left open.
Yeah.
If you're taking on a team that's got 4 or 5 guys that shoot the three so well, are you going to see so much scrambling? Because they don't work the ball inside very much, do they?
No, it's more like one touch inside, and then like A&M's defense would do, they would immediately help and rotate, and then that leaves someone open either on the backside or right there for an open look, or not a not as contested look. So that's another thing that Yale's offense is built to do. Now, have they seen the on-ball pressure that a team like A&M is going to give them? I don't think so. Have they seen a physical presence like Pharrell Payne and all of A&M's bigs in the Ivy League? I don't think so. So I don't think A&M will have to help off of shooters as much because they should be physically dominant inside. And I know they have 6'10", I know they have 6'7",
but their game's not in the middle, though.
Exactly. Their game is, let's use the middle to open up the perimeter. So they're not going to physically impose their will inside and try and get buckets inside. They're going to try and dribble and then kick it out immediately to find a shooter, which is exactly what they're good at because John Pulakita shoots 40% from three and Nick Townsend shoots 49% from three. So that's who they want to get the ball to, is open up something from the perimeter by getting the ball inside and then immediately moving it outside.
And how much of an advantage to A&M is it that they like to slow it down? They're going to use clock. They're not going, because I feel like where A&M is most vulnerable is a lot of times in transition on a bad shot, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like Yale's, I mean, of course, if they have a lane, they're going to take the lane, but it doesn't seem like they're going to try to push the ball as much.
Yeah, well, tempo is a big part of pulling upsets, but I think a team like A&M or Houston that doesn't want to run in transition and be fast is actually kind of neutralizes that aspect, because a lot of upsets happen when lesser talented teams slow the game down, and think of a team like Alabama that wants to go quick all the time. If Alabama's not hitting shots and they're going quick and their possessions are 10 and 12 seconds long, and then they got to go play defense for 20 seconds on the other end, that's going to take a toll and add up as the game goes on. A team like Yale and A&M, who both don't really want to run and be fast, that kind of neutralizes that difference that could be a problem for another team that is all about running in transition and operating their offense in the first 5 seconds and being unsettled. So I don't really see that tempo playing as much of a factor, because if it were up to A&M, I'm sure they would want to slow things down. Now, that could be an area A&M wants to exploit, because if Yale isn't going to offensive rebound, okay, let's go get the defensive rebound and run.
Right.
And let's use our athleticism as an advantage. But ultimately, it's going to come down to, does A&M want to push the ball? Because that then leads to turnovers. And when A&M gets to double-digit turnovers, that's not really a recipe for success.
I think it's really interesting, too, that this team is so efficient and they score so much with limited stuff, right? So they don't shoot that many threes, but they make
don't.
a high, like, what do they shoot? Is it like 19?
30, or how many threes a game?
I think they shoot like 19 a game,
Yeah.
right? Which would be on the lowest in the SEC.
Yeah.
Right? They don't turn the ball over a lot. We have already talked about how much of the shot clock they use, yet they still score 83 points a game.
Yeah. So I was looking at a graph of like all the teams in March Madness, from how often they shoot threes, like what percentage of total shots are from three, and then like what percentage they make. And Yale was on the end of, they don't take a bunch of threes, but they make a ton of threes. So that's what we kind of talked about the other day, about how they don't like to live and die by the three, but when they're living by it, it's great because they're going to make a high percentage. But when they're dying by it, it's like, okay, they're smart. They're not going to continue to take threes. Whereas, unfortunately, A&M, when they're dying by the three, they think, okay, we have to shoot ourselves out of it and take even more threes. And then you end up with 30 threes a game against a Kentucky or an Alabama. And that's just not their recipe for success. And it's not like, it's puzzling because they don't have to shoot themselves out of it. They can work down low with Pharrell Payne or with Henry Coleman, but sometimes when the deficit is double digits, you feel, and you got guys who can make threes, certainly, they feel like they got to shoot their way out of it, when if A&M's down double digits to Yale and the threes aren't falling, it shouldn't be trying to shoot your way out of it. They should be working for other opportunities.
I hate to simplify it to this, but could it be as simple as what star shows up. So
Yeah.
they've got a couple stars. A&M's got a couple stars. When I say stars, A&M's really a team, right? But if Wade versus is it Bez? Is that how you say his name?
Bez Mbe.
Bez Mbe, and then Polakidis.
Yeah.
Polakidis, who's averaging almost 20 points a game?
Yeah. All my friends that go to Yale have been texting me. They're
You have friends that go to Yale?
Yeah, I went to a private school. They were like, all my friends go to Ivy League schools. I'm like I'm the dumb one.
You're in the Ivy League in the South.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
A&M is the Harvard of the South. People have been saying that.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully not on Thursday because, did Harvard beat Yale? I need a fact check. Did Harvard beat Yale in basketball like a couple weeks ago? Or maybe they lost to Cornell. I forget who their last loss
I thought
to.
it was Cornell.
Anyways, all my friends have been saying, get ready to learn Greek. That's like their catchphrase because Poulakidis is, I guess, Greek and he's a bucket. He had 28 on Auburn last year.
Yep.
I forget what he had in the Ivy League championship, but it was in the 20s. And yeah, he's their star. I saw anytime you go into March Madness, everyone's always trying to predict who's the next Doug Edert or who's the next Jack Golke. Everyone's been saying John Poulakidis because he makes a ton of threes and he can get hot in an instant. And who's a team that gives up a ton of threes? It's A&M. So This is prime opportunity for him to become a March Madness star. Not that he wasn't already for what he did last year against Auburn, but yeah, it's something to watch for. If he starts to get hot, there's got to be a defensive adjustment. You have the defensive pieces to put more on-ball pressure than they've ever felt this year against teams in the Ivy League with Solomon Washington or with Zurich Phelps or even Manny Obaski. It's just a matter of, are they going to make that defensive adjustment?
Well, A&M traditionally this season has done a really good job at neutralizing top threats, right? But
it's always that other guy that
the
team
other guy
tends to get them.
And the other guy could be Nick Townsend.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. If you take away Poulakidis, they got another dude who shoots 40% from three. So, good luck.
Who's the one who shoots 49% from three?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Townsend is the one that
49%.
shoots 49%. Yeah. Okay, so let's take away Poulakidis. All right, they have the third best shooter in the country on their team,
and he averages 15 points a game.
Yeah.
And that's probably because he takes the second most amount of shots because Poulakidis is just balling.
Yeah, so that's the thing is
Poulakidis wasn't even their best player last year.
I know, it's crazy. Their best players at Michigan. The storylines in this pod are crazy because both sides of that Auburn-Yale upset last year, Danny Wolf was Yale's best player. He's now on Michigan. Trey Donaldson was Auburn's sixth man last year. He's now on Michigan. So, and there's a chance that Yale and Michigan could play each other, but there's also a chance that A&M and UC San Diego could play each other. So I'm sure those Yale guys are like, I want to get our lick back on Danny Wolf. I'm sure there's not any bad blood about him.
No, but you want to beat your old teammate.
Exactly,
right?
But you want to beat your old teammate. And so the storylines are plentiful in this region. And yeah, if this Yale team had Danny Wolf, it would be an even tougher matchup. But
they wouldn't be a 13 seed, would they? I guess maybe they would.
The 12s this year are loaded. I feel like they probably still would be a 13 seed.
It was interesting when we had Coach Jones on about like how well he recruits.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Danny Wolf is expected to be a lottery pick, is what he was saying. Did you know that?
I mean, he's probably going to get drafted in the first round.
Wow.
Yeah. And they also got a kid, Samson Alaton, who
was the 6'10" guy.
Yeah, he was at Lake Highlands. He was coached by Dominique Kirk and won a state championship with Trey Johnson, who's at Texas. So a lot of kids that could be playing like power conference basketball go to Yale, get a great education, and you get to. I mean, they've been dominating that conference. So for a lot of those guys, it's their third trip to March Madness in 4 years. Like, who wouldn't want to get a great education and have like a over 70% chance to be playing in March Madness every year?
Yeah. How much of this game could come down to how it's called?
That is a big factor because you never truly know what whistle you're going to get. And that's A&M's had to deal with that in their own conference. Depending on who's the ref, and I know we all know the names of a couple of questionable ones out there, A&M could shoot 8 free throws against Texas, or they could shoot 48 against Alabama. You never know what whistle you're going to get, and part of that is on A&M for not putting themselves in position to get foul calls. Now, if A&M's going to shoot...
When they settle for threes, you
exactly. When they're going to shoot 33s, they're not going to get a bunch of calls. Now, I know A&M shot 48 free throws and 33s against Alabama, but that's because that was like an 85 possession game. There were way more opportunities to get possessions and then get fouls. Look, if A&M's getting to the line, They have to make them. They simply have to make their free
They
throws.
got to get, what, 25 plus times?
Yes, but if they make 15, that's not good enough. They have to get to 18 to 20 made free throws. I don't care how the game is called. If you leave points on the board, that is the last thing you want to do in a potential upset game. You have to take care of your opportunities. And Yale is a great team, yes, but when they played Purdue, they shot 60% from the free throw line. So they're not exactly guaranteed to make their free throws either. Let's put it that way. So the team that makes more at the line and gets to the line more is going to have an advantage. And why it is so paramount for A&M to get to the free throw line is because when you're racking up fouls, you're getting the other team in foul trouble. When Yale had to play Purdue, that's a different level of physicality. And Yale, you have to foul more to play defense. You can't defend a higher level team like that without extra foul calls, extra hand checking, extra positioning. So when they play A&M, if they're going to foul a lot, okay, A&M, you got to make them pay at the free throw line. And if you can get them in foul trouble, if you can get Mbaye in foul trouble, guess what? That's the guy who's going to be guarding Wade Taylor, who's the 3-time Ivy League Defensive Player of the Year. Get him out of the game. They only play 7 players consistently, so if you can get them in foul trouble, you can force them into difficult situations.
Whoever he's covering, the other guard has to have a game. So, like, you can't have another Zurich Phelps. Like, you need to have good Zurich, not what we saw against Texas.
Yeah, exactly. And Zurich may be giving up some size to the person that's guarding him with their 6'6" guards. I don't know if Nick Townsend will get that matchup or what, but yeah, they've got size. And the thing is, though, I think for me a key is a guy like Manny Obaski because he is so athletic. He's athletic for the SEC. Now, if he can blow by Ivy League guards, now these are not typical Ivy League players, but that extra step, even if it's just half a step, like Zurich Phelps, what he was able to do in the American, I think coming to the SEC, everyone's a little bit quicker. Everyone's a half step quicker, so his game hasn't been as fluid as he would have liked. This may be similar competition to what he's used to facing. So if you can get that extra step by your defender, maybe that leads to an easier look at the rim. For a team that isn't exactly making a lot of layups, A&M doesn't make their easy shots easy typically. So maybe that's a better chance at drawing a foul because you have better positioning on your defender. But either way, you have to use your athleticism. And who's more athletic than Manny Obaski? And he played well. He had 14 points in 10 minutes against Auburn. He had 17 against Texas before fouling out. To me, just like last year, if you get that March Manny, the good things will happen for A&M.
So I think it is unfair, but I do it, to always bring up the Penn State NCAA tournament game. But the reason I think it's relevant is some of the team is still here, and some of the issues that happened in that game still pop up. What were the big issues in that game? There were 2. They gave up a bunch of threes. They had Seth Lundy. Was it Seth Lundy? No, Andrew Funk. Who had all those. He had 27 points. He would not miss from the 3. And then A&M tried to match that by shooting the threes. How much of that do you think Yale's looking at? Like, this is how this team plays. Like, we're going to get our threes off. And how much of it is buzz? Maybe not that game specifically, but teams built to shoot the 3. How much of it does it kind of alter the way he goes about it?
Well, let's hope it alters the way you go about it, because I think if us on paper and everyone analyzing this matchup sees what Yale can do and what A&M's defenses typically give up, when you look at the opponent three-point attempt rate percentages for every team in the NCAA tournament, A&M has the highest. So that means that 49% of opponents' shots when they play A&M come from 3. I don't think it takes a math wizard to figure out that the team with the 9th highest three-point percentage in the country probably should not get to take 49% of their attempts from 3. So, and A&M's done this before. A&M has identified that, hey, Caleb Grill is the best shooter in the SEC. We are going to be on him like white on rice and not let him get a single 3 off. He got a couple off, but he only finished with, I believe, 5 or 7 points, and most of that came at the free throw line. So A&M has taken hot shooters away, but unfortunately,
they got multiple hot shooters.
They got multiple hot shooters, and 2, there are multiple examples this year of hot shooters feasting against A&M. I can think of Bryson Goodine every single time they've played.
Twice.
I can think of Chaz Lanier. I can think of Tyler Nickel, and the list goes on and on. Buchanan. I mean, they shut him down in the second half.
But first half, he had 14.
Yes,
I think he finished with 15. He had 14
yes,
in the
they
first
should
half.
not be waiting until the second half to make those adjustments. They did that. Even Chad Baker-Mazara, let's go to the Auburn game. He was on fire from 3 in the first half, and they took him away. They put Solomon Washington on him and completely neutralized him. Against Yale, I don't think you can wait until halftime to make your adjustments.
So it's very important in your notes you sent to me having a fast start.
Exactly, because when you're playing in an arena like this, you know, you've been to March Madness, you know how it goes. What does the crowd like to do? It's mostly a neutral crowd, and there's some supporters for each team, but most people are waiting for their game to start, or they just watch their team play.
Or they're in that city, they're like, I want to watch March Madness.
Human nature is to root for the underdog.
Yeah.
And so that crowd is going to be, until they play, if they were to continue to advance, until they get past playing Auburn in Atlanta, they are going to be the team that is going to be rooted against by the neutral fans. So it is going to be a hostile environment. A&M's used to that. A&M has won games on neutral courts. They've won tough Quad 1A games on the road. They're used to that. But in a setting like this, you can't let that other team believe that they can hang around with you. If you're up 10 early on Yale, you can impose your will and you can play your game. But if you're chasing that whole game, A&M is not built to come back like that. They are not built to put together those runs like that. When A&M's putting together 10-0 runs, it's taking 4 and 5 minutes,
Right, it's not quick.
2 minutes.
Yep.
It's not a quick strike offense, to use football terminology. So you got to get out fast.
Well, here's a thought. Maybe one of these three-point shooters is like, takes the C.J. Wilcher approach. Is like, next year I'll come join you guys.
Yeah, that would be great.
That'd be nice.
Maybe it's a C.J. Wilcher situation of, if you can't beat them, join them. Not it's if you beat them, join them.
Well, last year C.J. lost.
Yeah, exactly.
And he joined us.
Let's hope that happens again.
Thank you, Luke. What time you arrive tonight?
Midnight.
Obviously.
Frontier Airlines, do me well, please.
You have a stop anywhere?
Nope.
All right. Enjoy the trip.
I'll take it.
All right, Bird Dog Time. They're an Aggie-owned and company creating access to hunting opportunities, and they are basically an Airbnb for hunting. So if you want to go hunting, if you thought about hunting, if you're a really good hunter, if you are new to hunting, whatever it may be, let them set up all the logistics for you, where all you have to do is worry about the fellowship, the hunting, and the good times. They can help you set it all up. They'll get it all ready for you, have some add-ons like a helicopter ride. You can do a concert. You can have a private chef. They're great at doing all those things. If you're a landowner, you want to get some hunters on your land, they'll take care of you. They can also help you find those tax benefits to make money on your land. You don't even have to have hunts on your land. If you just have cattle or farming on your land, they're going to find you those tax benefits. Some of their clients are making an extra $100 to $500 per acre of land. The website is birddogit.com. Birddogit.com. Check it out. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Hour number 3 of the program. Theo Vaughn, is it next week that he's coming to town?
6th.
26th. Somebody's got to get me tickets because I forgot to buy them. So I'm just saying, if a TexAgger is going like, dude, Nuño, let's go. I got you your first water.
You want to go with me, David?
You got tickets? Look at that. What? Well, let's go to the Angry Elephant Youth and Social Center as I give you your raise. Hey, Reed, how are you, buddy? Favorite intern of all time. What's going on?
Thank you. I appreciate it. We've got a very passionate baseball fan on the YouTube comments. He says, adversity, injuries, close losses, blown saves, slumps, errors are tools of the baseball gods. How the Aggies fight, grow, learn, and respond is how the gods will reward or punish us going forward.
Well, this gentleman's name is Danalan. I think I'm saying that correctly, Mr. Danalan. Also says, after watching sports for over 60 years, sports writer for 7 years, I ask Aggie baseball fans to keep cheering loud. The baseball gods are challenging the preseason number 1 to prove themselves on the field. Baseball's just, it's so weird because I thought there would be a bigger talking point heading into March Madness in a positive way. There's certainly a big talking point, just not the direction I think we all expected, which is why I'm asking the basketball team, do me a favor, guys. Basketball team, I know you guys are always watching and listening. Thank you. Appreciate that. Can you please win a little bit this for the whole month? That sounds great to me. In fact, if you want to win all the way through April, that sounds great. Because our fan base needs to feel good, because I think people are just angry. And I get it. But I think a couple of victories can go a long way, and just to like, all right, I feel better about the direction of Aggie sports. What else do you have for us, Reed?
So earlier you and Luke were talking about, well, first of all, they did lose, Yale did lose to Harvard. It's their only loss in conference 2 weeks ago. It was 74-69. And one just thing about that game is their rebounds were a little, it's not low. They had 35 rebounds. But something that's interesting is earlier in the season when they played Harvard for the first time, they won 84-55. And they had the highest number of rebounds that they've put up this season, which was 44.
That's a lot.
And then y'all were also talking about, is it Mbang? Is that how you say it?
We're going to call him Mbang.
Yeah, so between him and Townsend, they pretty much make up almost all of their top rebounders for the season.
Mbang is one of their top rebounders?
For sure, yeah.
Wow.
He put up, so against Columbia, Dartmouth, and Harvard, Dartmouth, Harvard, and Brown, he went 10 rebounds, 12 rebounds, 11 rebounds. And then Simmons also should get some credit. He's in there quite a bunch for top rebounds. But shutting down one of those two players would be pretty key.
Yeah. And they got a lot of players that can hit the three ball, so
do.
it's not just those guys. All right, thank you very much, Reed. When we come back on TexAgs Live, it's March Madness. We're going to keep talking basketball. Justin Lanham joining the program. We'll chit-chat with Justin about his thoughts about the matchup and much, much more. Right now, a moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. A couple years back, my wife needed a new vehicle because her car was just getting to that point, like it's time to move on, folks. And we called Caldwell Country Chevrolet, and they gave us a bunch of options. We said we got 1,000 kids, so we need a big vehicle, and they gave us a couple of options. We test drove the Chevy Tahoe that we have now, which, by the way, has been fantastic for us. But they made the whole process so easy and convenient. It was great, and they can do that for you as well. They are the place to go when you're looking for a pre-owned vehicle, a new vehicle. If you're looking for service body trucks, flatbed trucks, several medium-duty trucks they have on their lot, by the way, to help you out. Locally owned and Aggie operated, complimentary pickup and delivery for their service customers, and free oil changes for life on the life of your purchase as long as you own that vehicle from Caldwell Country Chevrolet. It is Caldwell Country Chevrolet, just south of big city prices. We're talking about a 15-minute drive, the edge of Bryan to the beginnings of Caldwell. A short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and you do business with the great people at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. A year ago around this time, Justin Lanham was making his way out to Memphis. We partied hard in Memphis, at least till 9:22. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. We go to the Buppy's Catering Hotline. That's where we find Justin Lanham. What's up, Justin? How you doing, buddy?
About those wings we had.
Oh, they were
in
good.
Memphis.
Yeah, they were really good.
Yeah.
Now, I'm in the mood for wings now. How about that? Thanks for doing that. Hey, what do you think about this matchup with Yale? What do you think about A&M side of the bracket, the pod that they're paired up with? Just your thoughts overall.
Yeah, obviously, I think it's going to be a tough one. But I mean, once you get to the NCAA tournament, you know everyone's going to be tough. So it's not anything that you aren't going to expect there. I think the second round matchup, if you get there, is another one that can be tough. And I think a lot of people, may think you're going to see Michigan, but that UC San Diego team is pretty good too. So that's going to be a really interesting one. And then you win that one, and you're probably going to see Auburn again. And, I like your chances against them, especially what you just did against them and how they've kind of slipped a little bit. They've lost, I think, 3 of their last 4 games. And so, there's definitely some favorability there. But also, I mean, you got to take it one game at a time because there's definitely a chance and there's definitely a way you don't get past the first round.
Justin, how hard is it, though? Because when we think about A&M basketball, we either think about them at their best or we think about them losing 5 of 7, right? So how hard is it to pinpoint which A&M team is going to make it to March Madness and show up in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, you don't know, and I think it's something I've said a lot this year is just how inconsistent they are, and that's really hard to watch and just understand and know what you're going to get from game to game. It's always so different what you see from game to game. Sometimes they have a game where they shoot really well. Sometimes they have a game where they get to the free throw line 25 times and only hit 10 free throws. I mean, it's just you don't know what you're going to get night in and night out, and I think that's tough, especially when you're coming up against some of these teams in the tournament that are so consistent. Like you got a Yale team that is very consistent. And one thing that tells me that a team like Yale is consistent is 1, how they shoot the ball, but 2, the fact that they don't turn the ball over. When you have a team that doesn't turn the ball over at a high rate, you're probably a pretty consistent team.
Well, it just seems like if you were to draw up a team that could upset A&M, they would be able to shoot the 3 ball well. They wouldn't turn the ball over a bunch. They would have the ability to have multiple scorers on the floor at the same time. It just seems like if you're drawing up a recipe for a 13 seed to have what it takes to beat A&M, they've got what it takes. But I still think A&M playing their brand of basketball, they win this game 85% of the time if you listen to Matthew Dawson's algorithm or TexAgs' algorithm.
Yeah, I think you're right. They definitely have some of the things that have been A&M's kryptonite, the three-point shooting from outside, not turning the ball over, those things for sure. They rebound the ball really well defensively versus A&M's offensive rebounding ability. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch really close there. But yeah, I think A&M has something that is going to be tough for Yale to defend, and that's just the inside presence. I think Payne and Coleman have to be really physical inside. Hopefully you get a favorable whistle in this round. Like I think that's going to be a big key and big thing to watch for. If they're not calling much and Yale is able to get by without getting into foul trouble and they're able to just play their 7 guys like they normally do, 7 or 8 guys, then that's going to play into their hand. But on the opposite end of that, if you can get them in foul trouble, if you can get a guy like Nick Townsend in foul trouble, maybe have to make Bouloukidis, make him have to guard and maybe get some fouls, I think you can get them into some situations they don't want to be in.
Justin, what else about Yale worries you? Like, I mean, we know the 3-point shooting and that they're an efficient offense. Anything else jumps out about them?
Yeah, they're more athletic than I thought they were going to be. Like just watching them, they have some guys. The Casey Simmons kid, like I think he's really athletic. He's not somebody that you talk about a whole lot. He's got some length. He's 6'6". They have more size than what I thought they were going to have. I actually coached against the Samson Alaton kid whenever he was at Lake Highlands. I was at JJ Pierce, and I think he won Defensive Player of the Year the year that I was there. Just kind of just a vulture around the basket. Like he got his hand on everything, just deflecting shots and pretty physical inside. So he's going to be somebody that's interesting to watch for sure. And then the Bez Mbing kid, he's really, really good defender, but he's also kind of, to me, he's the X factor offensively for them too. I know a lot of people say the Poulikitis kid can shoot it, and he can. He comes off of screens really well. He makes shots that you just don't normally see guys making. But the Bez kid, I think he's really kind of their X factor. He gets them going. He's the point guard, and so as he goes, I think this team will go.
How much of an X factor is their coach James Jones? Because rinse and repeat, this team finds themselves in situations where they're going to play the Dukes of the world, the Baylors of the world, the LSUs of the world, the Auburns of the world, win some of those games, but also like they're in those games all the time, and it seems like he's got this team consistently playing in the NCAA tournament with upsets and close to upsets.
Well, David, I watched his interview with you, and I thought he has a new fan in me. Like I thought he was so humbly confident. I thought the way that he presented himself and his team, like he was very confident in his team. He wasn't cocky, but he was very confident in his team, and I think that was really cool to see. So. I think because of that, when you have a guy like that leading you, especially at a place like Yale, and he's confident in the guys that he's coaching, I think that makes you dangerous. And they have experience. They have recent experience that they can lean on and say, hey, guys, we did this last year. I know maybe we have a new team, but we've gone into these arenas and beat an SEC team in the NCAA tournament. So when you're able to lean on recent experience like that, I think that's huge.
All right, let's find some areas that A&M has the advantage over Yale.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it. They've got to go to the inside-out game a little bit. They've got to get Payne touches early on. They've got to make that defense kind of collapse and then maybe have some easier looks at the basket. If they just get it, and look, James Jones said it. He knows that they are kind of that chunk it and chase it type of offense. Like he knows that that's what they do. But to counter that, I think you really have to put pressure on the inside. I don't think Yale is going to be able to switch a lot where A&M has the ability defensively to switch who they guard just because they have the versatility. I don't think Yale is going to want to do that a ton. Like I don't think Bez and Poulikitis, I don't think they're going to want to get intertwined in who they're guarding. So I think you've got to really put pressure on those guys and put them in situations they don't want to be in. But I think it ultimately starts with getting touches inside, getting it kicked out to the outside, and getting a little bit easier looks. But if you're chunking them from the cheap seats and bad contested shots to begin with, I think it could be a long night.
Justin, I'm going to just throw you a couple names that I think could be X factors, okay? Because I think the Pharrell Payne one, I don't want to call it obvious, but the size and his physicality hopefully will be a bunch for Yale to contend with, and we know Wade. But if Zurich Phelps has a pretty good game, especially if they're keying in on Wade the way we think we are, because what we saw, unfortunately, from Zurich the last time we saw him play against Texas was not his best performance. If he has a big one, or we get more of what we've seen from Manny the last couple of games.
Yeah, to me, that's a key, honestly, David. If you can find a way to get those three guys on the floor at the same time, that's going to be hard to guard from a guard standpoint. Like, Bez is one player. He can't guard all three of them. I know he's a great defensive player, but I think you got to put pressure on a guy like Poulikitis. Obviously, he is an offensive threat, but I just don't know. I haven't seen enough to know what he is like defensively. So if he can get switched where he's having to guard a Phelps or he's having to guard a guy like Manny, I think you're going to put pressure on him. I think that also helps you, something you may not think about, but it helps you on the offensive end where you're tiring Poulikitis out, where maybe he's not as efficient on the offensive end. So I think you've got to get him into some situations where he's having to guard and you're forcing a guy like Poulikitis to guard. I think that's a big key.
Justin, we started off how we felt about this side of the bracket, and look, we will talk ourselves into and out of, why A&M can be a Final Four team, why they'll lose in the first round. Like that's what happens this time of year because you're getting so much more information, it becomes information overload. But I feel kind of like James Jones. I'm kind of confident about this team, right? Like I'm not gonna be cocky because look, I respect Yale and I respect both other teams that they could potentially face if they do win. But I feel good, and I don't know why I feel good because typically I don't feel good. Do you follow me here?
Yeah, I go back and forth a lot, David. I feel like I'm a crazy person. Like sometimes, 5 minutes go by and I feel good about it, and then next 10 minutes go by and I'm like, oh man, this is the worst matchup that we could face. Kind of situation. So, but I'm with you. I do feel good about it. Like I feel like if you can get past Yale, I do like that second round matchup, and then also I think out of the number one teams that you're going to play, like you would rather play in Auburn because you've had success against them. So to me, that's more of I would rather play a team that I've had success against versus playing a team that maybe I haven't seen yet or I haven't had success against.
So I know we both haven't seen that much of UC San Diego. I've read all the metrics on how good they are. Michigan, I find them to be an interesting team because they're hot right now. But I don't remember all the teams they beat in the Big Ten tournament, but I don't remember it being the top teams, right? So I know they're hot, but 3 weeks ago, where people were talking about Dusty May has been, he's been okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a interesting one. I do have probably second leading scorer for UC San Diego is a kid right around the corner from me at Denton Geyer, and he can fill it up. He can shoot it. So that's the little bit I know about UC San Diego. And then the only thing that I will say that's scary about Michigan is just kind of the run that they're on right now. Sometimes the NCAA tournament is just about getting hot at the right time. Like you think about that Kemba Walker and UConn team back in the day about, how they just got hot at the right time. And so that definitely concerns me a little bit, but I definitely think the only thing I guess with the A&M side of things is just the inconsistency. Obviously Michigan is having some consistency right now, winning some of these games late, and then A&M, it's just what A&M team is going to show up.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to give Michigan some props because they finished their schedule with a similar schedule that A&M did. Maybe not the echelon of the A&M opponents, but they lost, looks like 3 in a row right before they went on this big run. And their losses, number 13 Maryland, number 8 Michigan State. They also lost to an Illinois team. And then beyond that, they beat, in the tournament, by the way, Purdue, number 20, number 11 Maryland. And they beat number 18 Wisconsin, who was playing very hot. So they are playing hot against good teams too.
Yeah, and the top, the top few teams in the Big Ten, Maryland, Michigan State, Purdue, Michigan, they're solid. I think obviously the SEC is getting a lot of hype and it's deserving of it. But I think the Big Ten has some guys at the top that definitely can play this year.
Justin, appreciate it, man. Talk to you soon.
Appreciate it, David.
Yep, Justin Lanham here on TexAgs Live. All right, we're talking about the Association of Former Students. If your organization or business is looking for an opportunity to engage with Aggies, then you need to check out the Association of Former Students. They bring Aggies of all ages together during some awesome events held throughout the year, like Aggie Ring Day, All Aggie Hullabaloo, The Gathering. They welcome tens of thousands of guests, and there are many sponsorship and vendor opportunities to get your brand in front of those attendees. And they offer a wide variety of both digital and in-person options to promote your brand. These options include title sponsorship naming, on-site presence, activation, recognition, and social media posts, and much, much more. And there's also advertising opportunities in both the Texas Aggie Magazine and the Aggie News newsletter, which are seen by over 230,000 people. So if your business is ready to engage with Aggies, choose a partner with the organization that's been supporting the Aggie Network for the last 140 years. For more information on options available through the association, please email sponsorships@aggienetwork.com. It is the Association of Former Students. And we're back. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Reed Neal. I don't know why I'm talking like this. Talk to me.
It's okay. Recently, Greg Sankey, SEC commissioner, had an interview where he was talking about how he wants to move the SEC more towards the direction of being an everything league instead of primarily just football and basketball, which we're definitely going towards. I mean, the SEC is dominant.
14 freaking teams. Yeah. Softball, have you looked at those rankings? I think they are.
He mentioned that softball, baseball, track. He even talks about golf, tennis as well, trending upwards in all of those. But in that interview, he got asked about comments specifically regarding the SEC being kind of seen as like a villain league in college sports. And then he responded to that and said, I've talked about that. First of all, I'm accountable for what I say. And my first response is, there are a lot of people who write about what they think, I think, and they try to interpret what I say, but they've never called me and asked me or had a conversation. That's on them, not me. And if it serves their purpose to paint someone as a villain, then that's a decision that they have made.
You either die a hero or live long enough to become the villain. Where's that from?
Hold on.
You don't know, do you?
Is it Batman?
Yeah, it's Batman,
Yeah,
of course. Hello,
Okay.
Who are you talking to? Anywho, by the way, the truth is, when you win a lot, you become the villain, right? The Astros, okay, maybe they were a villain for different reasons. Let me find somebody else. The Warriors, okay? The Warriors, when they were winning a bunch, became the villain. The Bulls, when they were winning. The Yankees. The Cowboys. It's been forever since they've won, but they became somewhat of a villain because of all the success that they had. Alabama, a villain because of all the success that they've had. So you know what? Let's make A&M the villain, but for winning, because we've been the villain before. Thanks so much, guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow from Denver.